that state cannot be allowed to have a nuclear weapon.
I think that's why Trump is trying to have these discussions. Students are drowning under student loan debt. Like, you should stop getting our money, in my opinion.
And they're graduating with like gender studies.
Exactly. I think it's absurd what they're doing.
You think that should be protected under freedom of speech? What if you don't know how to use the mail, Billy? I mean,
yeah, okay. Good luck. Listen, man. I don't know any black person, honestly, that does not have ID. I know
you guys aren't fooling anybody.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's so stupid.
That's usually how it is.
So it's good. But anyway, hey, guys, thank you for joining us today. I'm your incorrigible host, Scott Loia. Welcome to the Scott Loia Podcast. And we got somebody awesome. We got Billy Prempeh. Okay, he's running for Congress in the 9th District. He's an awesome guy, and I love the way he talks. He talks MAGA really, really well, and he's knocking on doors. He's trying to get this district to flip red. So, hey, man, Billy, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, brother. Thank you. We've been trying to do this, since last week, I think?
Yeah. But hey, it's okay.
Technical difficulties, campaigning, stuff like that.
It's all good. It's all good. But look, it's good to have the conversations and put it out there. I don't know where to start. I was thinking, because it was funny. You mentioned, what do you want to talk about? You want to talk about aliens, Egypt? What do you want to talk about?
You can talk about whatever.
When you mentioned aliens, I was thinking about the drones because I was driving home the other night, and I was like, you know what? Nobody's been talking about the drones lately.
When Trump got into the White House, that was one of the first few things he disclosed. He apparently said...
Was it? Did he disclose something?
Well,
because I don't remember him doing
it. It was his press secretary that came out and addressed it. It was within the first week or two. But what they said was that it was military drones, or it was a military contractor or something along the lines of that. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't hear that.
And the drones were being used for, I think, surveying the land or looking for nuclear waste or something like that. But they said that
I heard a rumor about that, but I wasn't sure that was right.
That's what they said. And
that could scare a lot of people.
Of course. And apparently that's why they didn't release it, even though they should have released it to the people, what was going on. But according to what the White House said, that it was nothing to be alarmed at. But I don't trust the government. So it's for all we know, there's probably more going on with that. You
know what I did notice, though? Because we haven't seen a lot lately. We used to see when I would drive, say, Route 4, Route 17, way home, whatever. You look up in the sky and you see it's hovering. It's not a plane.
I didn't get a chance to see. I know a lot of people that
I've
saw
seen
them,
so many of them. And sometimes you go here to the field, right near the police station.
Mm-hmm.
You know Catherine, my friend Catherine. Yeah. So Catherine got some video footage. I got some video footage on 208. And these things, they're just hovering. So if you stop and you pull over on the shoulder, or whatever, you see now you have nothing moving. So how to reference
that thing's
something
totally
else.
Moving.
Yeah, that thing is not moving. It's just staying there, and I was like, what are they doing? It was so weird. I saw one of those YouTube shorts. These kids, they come out and they're looking at the sky and they're like, oh my God, look, and the drone comes down. It doesn't go all the way down to the ground, but it stops midair about 20, 30 feet up.
They got footage of it that close?
It's not this type of drone. It's not a mystery drone. This is a delivery service. So it has a contraption, and the cable comes down and delivers their food or something like that. It releases, drops the food, and the cable retracts, and then the drone takes off. I was like, that's a little weird. Yeah. Maybe it was testing for Amazon or something.
Probably,
it was
man.
Weird.
Honestly, whenever the government starts doing things like that, and they don't really disclose or they don't clearly address what's happening with the people, most of the time it's something nefarious.
I did get a good shot of one, though.
You did?
It looked like a plane.
Like an actual plane?
They made it look like a plane.
Okay. Was it a plane?
It wasn't a plane because it was hovering. They made it look like a plane.
So maybe it was, I don't know, and this is just me giving benefit of doubt. Maybe it was like a hobby drone or something like that. I don't know.
I don't know. I just thought it was weird. Who knows? Maybe it's just some stupid psyop or something.
It's probably a shape-shifting UFO from other dimensions.
Weird. But anyway, some other stuff in the news we can talk about. Last week, everyone was really fired up in good ways and in bad ways about the news about Biden. Okay, and his illness, and that actually kind of it triggered me a little, and I was like, you know what, with everything that happened to Trump, and you see everyone on their side just, wishing for his death and, oh, they missed, like those disgusting comments. I understand why some of the people on our side are so fired up to like dish it back, but it's like, I don't want to stoop that low. Like, what was your take on it?
I'll be completely honest. I think the guy was sick as far back as like 2019.
100%. We all knew it.
And the reason why I say that is because you could watch videos of him in the early 90s, sharp as a tack. You see him when he was with Barack Obama, 2008, 2010, sharp as a tack. Around 2008.
Well, coherent. I wouldn't call him sharp.
Well, compared to the Biden we got.
Yeah, compared to now,
I'm referencing it with the Biden that we were delivered, that was the Amazon version of Biden.
Right.
Back then we had the Temu version of Biden.
Right.
So it just became very apparent to me that this guy's clearly sick. I don't think the Democratic Party cared, and they kind of just forced him anyway. It's very similar to what they did with, I don't like to talk about the dead, but same thing they did with Bill Pascrell. He was a congressman for many, many years in District 9, and when his health started declining, the party still pushed him forward to go and run this race regardless, even though he should have been resting and relaxing. Same with Joe Biden. But,
he was an old guy. How old was he?
Bill was 88, or I think he just turned 88 before he passed away. Yeah. That guy was a trooper, man. He was not backing down.
No, it wasn't. Just a side note, be careful with the banging on the table because the sound does pick it up. But so you know what? Let's talk about that, about your last election, because there was some nefarious activity that was going on there. I know you're looking forward to talking about that.
Yeah.
You have to be. I wasn't happy because with everything that happened in 2020, I was very upset. This past 2024, where, we were riding Trump's coattails. A lot of things were turning red here in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Even Passaic turned red. We were really pulling for you and for Paterson. But some way, somehow, the Paterson machine, it stuck it to you. So give us your take on it.
Here's what I can say. Looking at that race on Election Day, and I don't know if you were watching the results live on Election Day, but
yes.
At about 8 o'clock when the polls closed, initially, whether you were on AP, Google, NBC, any of them, they showed the Green Party candidate, Benjamin Taylor, in first place with 51,000 votes. And I'm like, that's absolute nonsense. There's no possible way that this guy who doesn't even live in the district came out of nowhere and all he did was talk about, the Palestine-Israel situation, that he's in first place. And that went on for about maybe 30 minutes or so. Then the numbers corrected. Next thing you know, he has 1,100 votes or something like that, 1,150 votes. I'm in second place. Nellie Poe's in first place. But I'm right behind her, about 2,000 votes behind. And I'm like, oh, guys, I think we've got a serious shot. Over the course of the next hour, I'm gaining on her. I'm down 50 points. I'm down 100 points. She's not gaining too much.
It's neck and neck.
It's about neck and neck. And that's the reason why we were one of the last races to be called in the state. Everybody was so certain that Billy's going to win this race. They called it for just about everybody. District 9, they didn't call it. Oh, it's too close to call. Which town was it that they were too close to calling? Paterson. And this is something that I've seen happen already 3 separate times, where all the other precincts report. Paterson hasn't reported yet. Next thing you know, at about 9:30, 9:45, she shoots up 13,000 votes. I don't get a single vote past that point. And everyone's looking at the screen like, Billy.
Just like Biden in 2020.
Well, listen, man. I almost banged the table, see? Listen, man, like everybody was watching that in real time. And we're like, there's no possible way that she did this unless there was a ballot dump. Now, I didn't want to jump into like conspiracies. And it's not even a conspiracy at this point. They're playing games. You see what's going on in Paterson.
Sure.
The council president just got indicted for a second time, which they should lock him up already at this point. I don't know if you know the details.
Are you talking about the
Alex Mendez, council president?
Which one?
Alex Mendez. He's the council president.
Oh, I thought you were going to bring up, who was it? Velas with the car accident?
Oh, we can talk about that too.
All right. So back up. Tell us about the president.
So the council president in 2020, during the mayor's race, he had several people that were working on his campaign that were collecting ballots, and they were putting them inside of mailboxes, bundled up with rubber bands in North Halden, which is not even in North Halden, in Halden, which is not even in the city of Paterson. But they found all these ballots that were submitted, and apparently they found a WhatsApp group conversation where they were talking about facilitating this entire situation. He claims that he's innocent. I don't believe he's innocent. I remember in 2020, I told him that, like, listen, man, if I find out that you're playing any of these kind of fraudulent games, because I was convinced I was going to become the congressman at this point. I said, if I find that you're playing any games, I'm going to be on you like white on rice. I'm going to ensure you get locked up for this.
Hell yeah.
He's like, oh, no, I'm not going to do that, my friend. I don't do that. He did it. But seeing what happened in my race, though, it was almost instantaneously that when Nelly got those additional 13,000 votes and was declared the presumed winner, because they didn't confirm her as the winner until the following Tuesday, which blew my mind even more so. I'm like, why is it taking so long for me to get a solid answer as opposed to everybody else? People almost instantly were saying, hey, Billy, are you going to concede? Are you going to concede the race? Or you can concede the race? The media starts showing up to my office. They all just want me to concede. And I'm like, I'm not conceding this race. It's like, oh, so are you going to challenge the results of the election? Well, first off, and I want to say something just kind of in the defense of Jack Ciattarelli. And let me say that only because it's happened to me. In 2021, when he ran, he said that, he's going to challenge the results. He's going to look into it and all that. And
I was upset.
Of course. I was pissed. I was furious.
Because everyone thought he won Bergen County. And yeah, 100%. It was like the same thing. Then all of a sudden the magic ballot bus comes in and there's a dump and, like 99.9% of it is for Murphy. And
now here's the problem.
And I'm sorry to cut you off. By the way, that was after they had already called it for him.
Correct.
That's what pissed us off.
You see, and now
it's games.
I didn't really understand the because I was like, how could you tell us you're going to go and fight for us, Jack, and then you don't fight for us? That's the reason why I said I'm not going to concede, but I didn't necessarily say I was going to challenge it because I understood and knew what it would take to actually challenge this election. First off, it's going to require a lot of money.
Sure.
Got to get lawyers. Everything we're doing is a grassroots campaign. Everyone's rah, Billy, we support you. But come on, I need you to donate to help me get to that point. Right. And even if that's the case, like this is an uphill battle. And the last thing I wanted to do was take this into court. And for the most part, a lot of the judges and groups are controlled in favor of the Democratic Party. It would be, me swimming in the opposite direction. It's going to be very uphill. So I didn't concede. But my mindset was in 2026, we have to do similar to what President Trump did. We have to make this absolutely impossible, make it too big to rig. Get as many people registered as possible. We're chasing ballots. We're keeping track of everyone that we are registering this go around to. And we're trying to set up a solid base of already pre-set up voters who know who I am, know what we're about, who we helped register, and get prepared to at least have enough moving forward and continue to push the campaign forward.
Okay.
Now, there was something also that happened because shortly after the election, I had to go and take a break. I had to get away from politics for a little bit. For the past 5 years, was just nonstop.
Need to decompress a little bit.
Oh yeah. So about a week, maybe 4 or 5 days after the election, I decided to go to the Philippines for a little bit. I went there for about 3 weeks. Haven't been on vacation in a
Where'd you go? Manila?
Yeah, I was in Manila. Yeah. Nice. Great time. Great time.
That's great.
Can't talk about it, but it was a great time. But no, I didn't do anything nefarious. It's just a joke. But I went out there to kind of just decompress. I wanted to get some sun. I wanted to go somewhere far away where they at least still understand me. And then I started getting phone calls from people in Paterson. And they're like, hey, Billy, there's this guy in Clifton who is posting pictures of ballots. And I think I can send them to you. You can probably put them up on the screen on the show, post-production.
I know what you're talking about.
You seen those?
Well, I think you sent it to Kate. Kate sent it to me, or it got to me somehow.
So
the picture of the picture of the box of ballots in the basement.
Yes. So this guy started posting these pictures on his Instagram page of all these boxes with ballots wide open. They're bundled. The boxes are marked Paterson. Yeah. And in my mind, to the best of my knowledge, none of that information should be out there publicly. On top of that, you shouldn't be able to have access to the room where these ballots are being harvested as well, too. So I reached out to the guy, did a little bit of investigation. Turns out that this guy has some kind of, and I'm not going to try and blow up his spot because we're still kind of looking into this, but this guy has some kind of familial relationship with John Curry, the Passaic County Democratic chairman. And he appears to have some kind of vendetta with him. They must have fallen out at some point. And this kind of came off like it was a cry for help, or he was trying to show that he knew what was going on. And we reached out to, several lawyers to contact him and say, hey, we want you to, come forward and make a statement. And this would have been the biggest smoking gun, which is why we're trying to get Alina Haba and other people into this to find out what's happening here. And I asked him and recorded the conversations and everything, just so you know, so you can't change your story, kid. All right, but he was telling me that he went to the Board of Elections in Paterson to get a veteran's ID. And when he went to go get an ID, he saw a room that was wide open where all these ballots were. I think it's total nonsense. I think he was a part of the operation to begin with. And I said, well, how did you get access? How did anyone allow you to be in there, let alone give you the opportunity to take so many pictures? And he started to get nervous. He was asking, are you the police? Are you FBI? And I said, nah, I'm just Billy Prempeh. Like, I'm just some guy on the internet. And, I ran for Congress. I'm just telling you that a lot of people are reaching out to me. Your pictures look very suspicious. And it's only a matter of time. If anybody looks into this, I think it's best you talk with me and let me know what exactly happened. So he steps out of his room and he pulls me to the side, on the phone, I should say. And he says, all right, well, I want to tell you about another thing that may give you some insight. And I'm like, okay. So he explains to me that there's an eyeglasses store in Clifton. And he sent me a picture of what the eyeglasses shop looks like. And he sent me the picture of a truck. We tracked the license plates. We found out who actually owns that truck. And he said, I seen this truck come multiple times to this eyeglass shop, and it was coming in and out with these post office bins filled with ballots. And I said, are you sure? And I asked him 2 or 3 different times on the phone to confirm. I said, are you sure that those are ballots? He says, I'm 100% positive. They looked exactly like the ones.
How would he know that they're ballots from afar if he's only seeing the bins?
That's what I'm saying. So that's why I asked him to confirm. Uh-huh. And he said he's seen it multiple times go in and out of this building. He says, I'm absolutely certain the ballots looked exactly like the ones he saw in the box in Paterson. So then that kind of tied everything together for me, because I said, okay, well then, how do you know about this eyeglasses place to be there to watch this happen multiple times? He says, oh, I've got nothing to do in politics. I later find out he's actually related to a former councilwoman that just passed away. And he was actually running the campaign to some degree. So the guy wasn't being fully forthcoming with me. So what I gathered from that conversation was there is a ballot harvesting operation. There's something going on in that eyeglass shop. It's not registered to anyone at this point. It's kind of just like a vacant building that's no longer being used. But he is aware of the fact that ballots are being moved in and out of here. You somehow have access to this area in the Passaic Board of the Passaic Board of Elections, and you're not an election worker. You've already addressed to me that you're not that kind of person, and you know about this. So it's either you had something to do with the moving of those ballots, or you knew about this for a very, very long time, and you're trying to come clean. Either way, the kid knows something.
Right.
So after a while, our lawyers are trying to reach out to this kid. They can't get through to him, and eventually he just falls off the grid. And what ended up happening, he tells me he got arrested and then he disappeared. And now the kid, I think he's blocked me. He's completely disappeared. But I'll find him, and I know we can get him. But that tells me
we get Alina on the case.
Well, yeah. Listen, and I'm trying to convince the kid, like, listen, if you just work with us and like at least tell us the truth, like I don't think they're gonna penalize you, especially if you could tell us exactly who is doing this and why this is happening. But we'll eventually get through to. And that's the first time I've told this story anywhere. So like
exclusive right here.
You have an exclusive on.
No, we're definitely going to put it out there. We've spoken about election fraud before. Like people like me, we all had that sentiment. Like everyone has like seen those memes. Election fraud. Where you see the red line, and then you see.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, it's always the magic ballot, but it's always something. I'm not saying that Republican people, like, we don't have our bad actors,
sure.
But it's so disproportionate. It's in their blood, and they have more of a reason to cheat. Okay, when you have one party who basically the constituents are made up of the makers versus another party whose constituents are basically made up of the takers. Okay, the takers don't want to lose what they have.
Of course,
they're all on the dole. Okay, so they get desperate. So that's kind of my take on it, and I don't.
I think it's a universal take. That's a universal. Huh? I think that's a pretty universal take.
It should be. I think, but no. Hey, look, we're no stranger to this. It's happened to a lot of people in our camp. It's always happening to people in our camp, and I really hope if you are in touch with Alina Habba's office.
We've been trying to get a hold of her. She's a tough cookie to get a hold of.
Sure.
Everybody's trying to call her.
They're so busy.
You know, and
so
now
busy.
she just made that statement about trying to press charges on Congresswoman Letitia James for the. You don't know about that? The whole ICE thing.
Oh, at the detention center.
Yeah, because
and the mayor was there also. What's his name? Baraka or something.
Baraka. You know, essentially what she was there with Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman and Ross Baraka and several other sheep. They went to the ICE office and they were trying to just kind of work their way in, demanding that they needed to see stuff. But she's clearly on video pushing and shoving, essentially assaulting an ICE agent. So she's really caught up in that. Now there's a judge that's kind of weighed in on it. So
they were using the center for what? Like to hold illegals that were in process for being deported.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And the funniest thing is,
so she just went there to grandstand.
100%. So that's what's the funniest thing is, like, I had this conversation with a few people. I told this to Spadia, I told it to Chittarelli, I told it to Kranjak. I told them the same thing. I said, hey, I believe that the candidate that's probably going to have the best shot at being the nominee is Ross Baraka. I don't believe that anymore. Now that the ICE thing happened, I don't believe that anymore because I think that was a stupid hill for him to die on. I'm like, you're going to die on the hill of people that came to the country illegally, violated your laws, or living off of your country, and just don't respect it altogether. You're going to die on that hill while there's fentanyl in your own backyard. But, you know, at that time, before he did that, Ross, I think, had a very, very smart strategy that no other Democrat was doing. Where are the majority of the Democrat voters?
In the urban areas.
Exactly. They're in the cities. Every single one of the large cities I've seen, Newark, Irvington, Paterson, Camden, Orange, the Oranges area, he's got headquarters in every single one of those areas. He's working with the community. He's trying to get as much visibility as possible. So if that is enough to push him over the edge, he just needs to sway the suburbs after the fact. And none of the other Democrats are doing that. They're just kind of just blowing money and throwing it across.
Did he have the money? Because
Ross?
somebody like Josh Gottheimer, okay, he ran for Congress. He already has like a $10 million war chest.
He does.
And he's okay at talking. When he was running for Congress against Frank Pallotta, remember? Yeah, I listened to that debate. I thought Frank squashed him.
100%.
Yeah, but he's still, like, Josh is still like a good talker when he doesn't have any opposition in front of him, you know?
You know, but
they're all a little slick like that, and he has the money already.
He's got the money, but the problem is, see, the thing is like whoever the Democrat nominee is going to be, the Democrats are going to vote for, and that's a problem that we have in the Republican Party. It's like
I'm so worried about that.
Yeah, and like if Bramnick, yeah, okay. If Bramnick doesn't win, I'm not voting for Bramnick. If Spadia doesn't win, I'm not.
Yeah,
You know,
I don't think it's so much Bramnick. It's
no,
definitely
that's a joke. I'm just using him as an example.
Yeah.
It's like if my guy doesn't win, then I'm just not voting at all.
I've spoken to so many friends about that, and I've tried to stay out of it because so many people are asking me in this primary election season who I'm supporting, and I got to stay out of it. My thing that I say to everybody, whether you're for Jack or whether you're for Bill, in the end, you gotta get over yourself. I put out a video, get over yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. This is something that the Democrats, they're so good at, okay? They stick together. Mm-hmm. They unite. They unite over the shittiest policies, but they unite in the end.
Well,
and you know, in primaries, I don't know why all our money goes to the primaries. Our money should be going to the general. So whoever wins this primary, whether it's Spadia or whether it's Jack, I don't want to see the sour grapes by the GOP establishment, okay? You can't do that. All the money, we got to get as much money as possible to our candidate, and everybody's got to unite. You can't sit home. If you sit home, we're going to wind up with another Murphy.
100%, 100%. And
it's
that's
ridiculous.
And that's kind of the point that I'm making here is like when you look at the Democratic debate in comparison to the Republican debate, and there were more candidates for the Democrats, they practically all said the exact same thing. You know, granted, they're all in elected positions, you know, so they kind of still got to toe that line and be that person in case they fail. So I can understand why there's a lot more back and forth on the Republican side. But what I'm hearing from a lot of people, Democrats and Republicans, is there's more mudslinging than actual policy being spoken about. You know, and that's that's what I think is going to bite Republicans during the general
That's what people
election.
remember.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't watch the most recent primary debate, but I saw a first
Bill did
one.
very good. Bill did very good.
He did very good.
Yeah. In the first one, I don't think he did very good, but in the second one, he did pretty good.
That's what people were saying. Like I said, I haven't seen that one. I saw the first one, and I thought everyone did pretty well. I thought Jack and Bill both did pretty well.
Yeah.
I disagree with some things, which I don't think he's going to be much of a contender. But between Jack and Spadia, I thought both of them were doing very well. And the thing that bothers me is that that's not what people are going to remember if they see it. What people are going to remember are the shots that they're taking at each other and the mudslinging. There's something going on between those two, man. They do not like each other, but that's what they're going to remember.
You know, and
it's horrible.
The thing that I find very upsetting about all of this is when it comes to, because like I think there's mistakes that both candidates did throughout the campaign. There's some good things that Jack has done. There's some good things that Bill has done. There's some bad things that Jack has done. There's some bad things that Bramnick has done. The first thing I'll start with is the line is gone, right? Me, I could care less whether the line exists or not. You know, people still like me. They choose me. It is what it is. So the line never really affected me.
We're talking about on the ballot.
Yeah,
for those of you
the
that
people
don't know.
for people outside of New Jersey, we had a mafioso type system where it was like you got to roll with the line and that's it, right? But that's gone now. Now it's it's an open primary. But I think some of the candidates made a big mistake. Like I know Kranjak came for one of the candidate screenings in Bergen County and didn't really go much for Passaic or anywhere else. A lot of candidates decided to skip out on these county organization events, right? The only one that I saw going to practically all of them was Jack. And I think that's going to hurt. Like, let's say Jack doesn't win the primary and Bill does win the primary. He has to rebuild a solid base now. Like, he has his base of supporters, and they're always going to be die hard for him.
They are so die hard.
Oh yeah, and I love it, you know. But the issue now is, you win the general, you have to now backtrack and rebuild with all of these county organizations.
That was one of the questions I asked him. I went to an open forum that he had in Wyckoff, and I asked him. I said, "Look, I'm an undecided voter. You know, tell me how you're going to handle this situation if you win the primary, because, you know, establishment GOP,
that's my concern.
People, you know, that's a big concern for me. If you win, there's going to be sour grapes. How are you going to get that money? How are you going to get that help from them to, you know, support you in the general? Because if we can't win the general, there's no point. So I need to know how you're solving that problem." His answer was Bramnick.
What do you mean, Bramnick? I don't get it.
He was saying that he was going to get the support from Bramnick, from the people who were supporting Bramnick, that those voters were going to come to him, and he was going to get help from Bramnick's camp. I'm just telling you, that's what his answer was. He may want to change that. I'm not so sure. I'd like to talk to him. Okay, I've been speaking with some of the people that are helping.
Invite him on the show. Invite them all on the show, actually.
Well, they said that they'd like to do it. I don't know. I may have to come out to him. I may have to come out to Jack, but I asked them for some time. Please give it to me.
I'm here. So.
We'd love to talk to them and put as much information out there as possible so that voters can make a good decision. You know, I didn't think it was a bad idea, but I'm not so sure how viable it is.
I'm really not sure. Trying to see it. Like, what is there like a deal that they made, or
he said that he's friendly with him. Okay. You know, if you notice in the first debate, like the two of them really weren't going at each other. It was more him versus Jack.
They just tag team Jack.
Maybe, who knows? I really don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's out of my wheelhouse.
I mean, regardless of that, it's like. I don't know. I don't see it, bro. It's like what I think he's gonna have to work on immediately before even swaying and trying to pull more Democrats on the inside is because, for one, you've already created your platform of people, and diehard Republicans are gonna vote for you. But now you have the moderates, the establishment, whatever you want to call them, people on the other side that don't like you. Now you have to convince them. Then you also have county committee members who you never showed up to a lot of their events, and now you want their help, and you're going to need their help. Because the way that I look at it, or the way that I've always seen county committee, is like win or lose. If you win post-primary, you essentially have a small built-in volunteer base of people that are the most directly involved in Republican politics, who are talking, who are in their community. it's a group that you've already lost, so you have to rebuild that moving forward. I think that was kind of a bad move, in my opinion.
I'm not sure. Like he's trying to brand himself as the anti-establishment candidate,
and I love that.
Trying to. He supposedly has always been a Trump supporter. Okay,
I believe that though. I believe he was.
I do believe it, but now he didn't get the endorsement, and that has just set his supporters on fire.
Yeah.
You know, they're really upset about that. They're not leaving Trump, but, you know, like every once in a while. And I remember that this happened during a primary in Alabama many years ago. I forget the candidate's name. There was a lot of, you know, false narrative that was spat out in the media about this guy, and Trump didn't endorse him. He endorsed somebody else, and everyone was telling him that he made a mistake. So, look, sometimes there's course correction. You know, Trump doesn't get it right 100% of the time, but he's right a lot of the time.
Yeah.
In this case, I'm not sure what it is. And I'll tell you, you know, as somebody who's watching the last primary with Jack, and I like Jack a lot, but I was really upset that he didn't embrace Trump's endorsement.
You talking about in 21?
In 21,
yeah.
I was like, I don't appreciate, you know, the distancing from Trump. This is the leader of the party. We got to bring him in, and New Jersey can't be afraid of bringing Trump in. You know, like if you bring him in, you're going to see how many people are going to come out and follow.
Right.
You know, that's what we need. We can't, you know, hide out. You know, we need people to be strong, to be willing to say what they want to say, you know, without thinking that they're walking on thin ice. You got to be able to die on the hill, bring out our leader, bring out our guy, and then everyone else will follow.
You know,
and people didn't.
That
you know,
helped
that
them.
pissed me off.
That pissed me off too. You know, but fast forwarding to today and kind of seeing the relationship or the dynamic that Jack has with Trump, I look at it from this perspective. Whether Jack likes Trump or not, Trump is also a businessman, right?
Sure.
I think Trump is looking at this purely from a numbers perspective and from a viability perspective.
He may be.
He may totally like Bill Spadea, or he may think Bill Spadea is the best thing since sliced bread, but he's looking at this from a numbers perspective.
It's not a general.
I know.
It's a primary.
I understand.
He didn't have to do that.
That's what I thought. I thought he was going to wait till post-primary and then endorse whoever the person.
That's why it's so curious to me.
Well, the reason why,
because he's also about loyalty.
He is about loyalty, but at the same time, let's look at J.D. Vance, for example, right? And this is an analogy that a lot of people bring up. Is in the beginning, he was super against Trump.
Sure.
You know, now J.D. Vance is like, you know, right-hand man. Like,
yeah.
Like
he's on the train.
Before Trump was the pit bull and Mike Pence was like the Labrador Retriever to calm it down. Now Trump is the Labrador Retriever and Vance.
There's
is
so
like the
many
pit bull.
people like that, but he brought the receipts. They saw the track record. They can concede that they were wrong.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know if Jack has admitted whether he was wrong in his decision against Trump or not. I think he's just accepting and embracing the endorsement, and I think that's a good thing for him. My main concern is that going to be enough after the primary for people to get behind them? Now, granted, Jack does have name recognition. There's a lot of people across the state, and even in the inner cities, there's a lot more people in the inner cities that know about who Jack is, and want to meet Jack in comparison to
well, he's run twice.
Right.
You know, almost won the last time.
But he's also showed up. That's another thing, you know, like maybe not in the grandiose way as he should in all the other areas, but people have actually seen him in places like Paterson, Newark, Irvington, things like that. It's not like, hey, I'm just going to show up for this pro-Trump thing and that's it. Like, he actually show up in the community, you know? So by doing that, that gives him a little bit more leverage. And I think that the president is also looking at that. Like, even if this is not 100% my guy, and he's not really going to get me there, he's a victory that I can get. The thing I don't like about that is Trump is going purely on who can win and win record as opposed to what's best for the people in the state. But it's a compromise that I think we have to just kind of deal with.
There's a balance.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's calculated.
Yeah.
There's a balance. Let's pull it back. Let's bring it back to Paterson. Okay, so you're going to run for Congress for 26, right? District 9, you're going all over the place. Not main focus, but, you know, your home is Paterson, close to your heart. you're doing a lot of door knocking. What's the sentiment in Paterson? Like, what are people talking to you about the most who are willing to talk to you when they open the door?
You know what's one thing that a lot of people in Paterson are telling me, and the reason why, and I've been saying this for a while. Some people are saying like, "Oh, well, Billy, why don't you care about Bergen?" Or every single time I ran, I won Bergen County. You know, so well, the last 2 times I ran, I won Bergen County. I won it by a lot in 2024. My strategy has always been to try and cut the numbers in Paterson as much as possible, or outright win Paterson. Seeing in District 9 in 2024, President Trump won Passaic City, which out of all the towns
awesome. I couldn't
in
believe
Passaic,
it. It
I
was
did
great.
not think he was going to win. People say, well, it's only because of the Jewish community.
That's
No.
why I was so surprised that you lost.
Exactly.
Or did you?
Well, see what I'm saying? You know? Granted, I will say this. The reason, like, it wasn't, because I know the Jewish community, they're hardcore. They love me. They love Trump. They're going to come out. They're going to support.
Jew.
I didn't know you're Jewish. Well, there you go. All right.
Well, it's the 3 vowels at the end. You know, everyone thinks I'm Italian, you know, but yes.
Okay. But yeah, like, you know, the Jewish guys, they always come out and vote for conservative. So I was like, all right. But that's about, what, 3,000, 4,000 people that come out there? Trump won by like almost 9,000 votes, which means that there were people in that city. Some of them might have even been Democrats that voted for him. And the interesting thing about Passaic City is like they have a very huge illegal population, which means that the people that are living in that town are sick and tired of the illegals as well, too. And they want them to go. You know, so seeing that he was able to win in Passaic, I started to think, well, I have to really, really triple down here on Paterson, because Paterson's also looking at Passaic like, well, why did they vote for Trump, and then we all voted for Kamala, and we got nothing to show for it.
Right.
The sentiment that I've been hearing from the people in Paterson is a lot of people are divided, because I speak about a lot of the issues that are going on in the city, so people are divided as to like, well, Billy, you should run for mayor. But then at the same time, I want you in Congress because I know you can do so much for us here in the city outside of Congress without having to deal with all the nonsense bureaucracy. If you were the mayor and you have to deal with Nellie Poe, who you made a fool of for the past couple of years. So people believe that I absolutely have a shot at winning in 2026. And people are not satisfied with what Nellie Poe has done. She was a candidate who, let's back it up a little bit. Bill Pascrell had tremendous name recognition, right? And whether you liked him or not, there were people that still voted for him purely out of nostalgia.
Right.
A lot of those people that voted for Bill Pascrell out of nostalgia were Republicans. There were a lot of Republicans, a lot of them in Franklin Lakes.
Really?
Believe it or not, there's a lot of them in Franklin Lakes that I would call during phone calls, raising, nah, I'm going with Bill Pascrell. You know, I can't. I was like, but I'm conservative. Like, yeah, but you're too MAGA. So you're going to vote for Bill Pascrell, who wants to send billions to Ukraine and keep the borders open? Like, that's madness to me. But there were a lot of Republicans that really did like Bill Pascrell, believe it or not. And once he passed away, it kind of opened up the floodgates. Well, who's this Nellie Poe lady? We know of her, sort of, in, you know, Paterson, Haledon, North Haledon, Elmwood Park, that area. But even then, we only know her because when Pascrell left the assembly and went to Congress, she was handpicked to fill his seat in the assembly. Then she kind of moseyed on into the senator's seat, and now Pascrell's gone, and he did the exact same thing. They just moved her over to her chair. And the narrative was, well, she can win because she's Latina. We have a 46% Latino demographic in the district. And I'm like, but that's still not good enough. I'm as black as can be with dreadlocks, you know, from the 4th Ward of Paterson, New Jersey, and I had her neck and neck. So it has nothing to do with race. And
if anyone saw your debate with her,
she got cooked.
Yeah,
she got cooked, man. You know, and it's like sometimes I watch that. I rewatched it several times, and I'm like, you know, I should have said this. I should have said that.
It wasn't even hard.
No. But it's like people saw that debate, and they're like, well, what the hell did I vote for? Like, I know people who personally voted for Nellie Poe. Like, I like you, Billy, but I'm a Democrat, and they voted for Poe, and they said I should have voted for you, Billy. And I was like, well, yeah. What do you think? I mean, like, you don't even know this lady. She doesn't even know what she's doing in D.C. Everything on social media is copied and pasted. They hand select speeches for her to go out and
it's the same stupid talking points. But a lot of these talking points, even on a national level, okay, the sentiment is Democrats, they've fallen short. Nothing is working. People wind up with the same old, same old. Okay, Trump offered them change. MAGA offered them change. So are you feeling any of that? Is there any desperation? Are any of the constituents in Paterson and District 9 saying, man, it's time for Billy?
Oh, 100%.
3 times going to be the
100%.
charm?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. There's a lot of, which it's bittersweet because it's like, it took a long time. It took about 5 years to get to this point. But I just wish it didn't have to take this much. I wish it didn't have to take so many people getting killed in our community, so many drugs flooding our community, illegals taking advantage of our community. I wish it didn't have to take all of that nonsense for us to get to that point. But people are finally starting to be fed up with what they're seeing. Even...
Are they paying more attention to the policy? Like, are you talking to them?
Oh, yes. And that's the thing. People always liked my policies. Like, people like the freedom of education plan for school choice. They like the 8-10-12 plan for term limits, the sacred life plan. Believe it or not, some people who are super pro-choice, I'm a pro-life candidate. The sacred life bill basically states that if we're going to give federal funds to Planned Parenthood to go and kill our kids, then I think we should actually give a real choice to women. And some of that money should go to charities and churches to help women keep their children alive. Organizations like Lighthouse, for example. That's an actual choice because the only choice you're giving women is kill the child and that's that. And we're paying for that. And as a Christian, I can't support that. So let's give them a legitimate choice. So people agree with my policies. They don't think that any of my policies are unreasonable. And everything that I present has a balance. If it's something like for example, with school choice, well, you're going to take children out of our public schools and put them into private and charter school programs. Like, well, no, while the charter schools already exist, they're always going to be there. My goal is to turn every public high school into a trade school, essentially. Allow businesses to invest into our schools, bring these programs. They receive a write-off. Taxes don't go up on the homeowners.
It would be awesome.
Everyone thinks it's a good idea. It doesn't matter where you land politically. So people like me and what I stand for politically with policies. It's to the point now in Paterson, for example, that I'm known as the Republican in Paterson, but nobody is looking at it in a sense that that Billy's actually bad. And that's only because they know what I stand for and they know what I'm going to bring to the table. I just so happen to be Republican because I'm conservative. I'm an American first candidate, and I have no shame, and I'm unapologetic with that. As you see in places like Paterson, they like to divide it into groups, Fourth Ward, you got the black people, the Fifth Ward, Dominicans, over here in downtown Paterson, Peruvians, over here Union Ave, you got the Bangladesh and the Muslim. It's all very broken up and put in boxes. And that's how the Democrat Party maintains control over a lot of the people. I've always consistently pushed the message. I don't care where you're from, what religion you are, what background you're from. If you are an American and you love America, that's it. I will respect you as an American. I'm not going to respect you as a Muslim or a Jewish or a Christian or whatever you are. America first is what it is.
It's America first.
Because all of our families came to this country for a reason. My family came to this country for a reason. If we're going to put ourselves in boxes, how can I go into Washington, D.C. and represent only a small demographic of people if we're all supposed to be Americans? That's not an unreasonable stance.
That's why I love the way you talk, and thank you so much for that, because you don't get a lot of that in these urban areas. And it's good that somebody like you is getting that sort of message out and talking like that and, getting people to understand what America is all about.
That's what it is.
It's so difficult for me to watch the liberals talk about America. I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's tough. So one of the things I saw you post, let's pull back a little bit, go back to the election reform stuff, because we were talking about, how, the election process right now, very shaky. There's all this nefarious activity going on. One of the things that I saw that you had posted, you were talking about election reform, and you wanted to, if you did get elected to Congress, you wanted to introduce a bill requiring blockchain secured ballots for transparency and integrity. And all right, I want to let you talk about that a little, and then I'm going to give you my take.
Sure. Okay.
Go ahead.
So I am not a fan of vote by mail. Let's start there.
Sure.
Right? I'm not a fan of vote by mail.
Ditto.
But I also believe that vote by mail could still be done. There just needs to be a legitimate way to track where these ballots are going. And there has to be a way where the system can't be flooded or have ballots injected.
And for a valid reason, like we used to have it before. Like if you're on the space station or you're overseas, serving. Yeah.
Right. And that's understandable. That shouldn't change.
Sure.
By and large, a lot of people are voting by mail right now. And the issue that I have with that is, like, you don't know if that person actually voted. or not, or if this was actually them who filled out this ballot and put it in the mail. So what the blockchain ballot plan would do is, like, I'm a firm believer in voter ID. It's also something, and just a little fun conspiracy here. I swear, I think President Trump is stealing a lot of my ideas because, like, you see, you know how they're talking about trying to raise a child tax credit for families that are having more children and stuff. That's a policy that I came up with, put on my site, and I'm like, this guy's stealing all my ideas. You know, the 8, 10, 12. Anyway, we're going sidebar here, but with the voter ID, I think it's very easy for us to implement. Everyone already has a voter ID number. It's as simple as taking that number, encrypting it, and associating it with your driver's license, right? This driver's license, when it's showed at the ballot station, you scan it, it's already encrypted. When you vote, that gets locked onto the blockchain. No one can vote after the fact. No one can make changes after that. If someone needs to vote by mail, the same process should apply. However, with the ballots, every ballot should have its own encrypted number that can only be unlocked by your identification. The same way that if you're going to file your taxes online electronically, what do they send you in the mail? They send you a PIN, right? Before you can file and implement that PIN. If you got to vote by mail, okay, well, we wait for that second ballot, that second letter to come in with your PIN. When you fill out this envelope, you put that PIN. The only person that could possibly get that number is you. So if you're going to go, because right now...
Okay, so there is a verification process.
There is.
Okay.
You can't vote by mail without verification. Like, just... Because, like, now I could take you and say, hey, I'm Scott. Fill out your ballot and vote for, the Democrat and put it in the mail. You would be none the wiser. As opposed to, okay, you got this ballot, you send it in. Well, there's no verification. We can't count that. Okay, well, here's your ballot. 2 days later, here's your verification pin. Put the verification pin on the ballot. You send it in. We know for a fact it was Scott that sent that in because only you have that number. Or you could receive it through, actually, no, let's not do email. We'll just have it all go through mail for the most part. That way, we can keep track of who's sending in the ballots, when the ballots are coming in. And with the blockchain, you could set it where it locks at 8 p.m. Nothing can be added to that blockchain. Everyone has access to it. This is a public ledger, right? You'll see nothing but encrypted information, but you'll see that at 8 p.m., no one else has added any ballots. We'll no longer have these situations where we're waiting until next Tuesday to find out exactly who won or when this was done. Every single ballot, once it's done, it's logged onto that chain. So that's essentially how the blockchain ballot plan would work.
Okay. That actually sounds a lot better than I expected.
What did you think it was?
Well, yeah, only because of the, look, I'll be the first one to say I am tech savvy, but I have not invested a lot of time studying what, blockchain really is all about. I understand it's some sort of encryption.
Yeah.
You could probably, it probably has applications in electronic money like Bitcoin and stuff like that. Okay. So I was just expecting a little more black and white, but with the added verifications and the process, that's what made it sound a little better to me. And
well, you can't.
Now I'm going to have to sit back and I'm going to have to think about what you said and let it marinate a little in my mind.
You essentially can't use blockchain technology without verification,
right?
Because
you need a wallet.
Well, yeah. So, and the wallet would be your ID or your identification number, right? So, if this ballot was XYZ and this is ID ABC and that's associated to XYZ, if you make that vote, now it's locked. So, if anybody tries to vote after the fact, you could pinpoint exactly the time, the location, and which identification made that vote. So you can track down where the fraud actually happened.
The thing that bothers me about electronic voting, it's just the introduction of the technology, I believe, or it's just been my instinct up until now. I'm going to have to let what you said marinate with me. I'm going to have to think about it. But I'm just saying, up until now, my instinct has always been there needs to be more transparency. It needs to be sort of like a live event, almost like a football game, where we have equal representation, paper ballots, both sides are counting at the same time, so we're refereeing ourselves. It's sort of like, we don't have another hand in our election. The voters are governing it, okay? We have our representation on either side. We're governing what's coming in. There's a scoreboard. Everybody sees. Everybody collectively can watch. I'd like it more like an event like that, okay? Because then in in each polling station, then to each district, then to each county, then to each state. There's like a paper trail of how many votes were cast, what the numbers were, what the balance was. Then there ain't going to be any deficits. Like nothing's going to slip through the cracks. None of this BS with the magic ballot buses coming at 4 a.m. in the morning or anything like that, because people are going to be there and people are going to have the right to watch, and there's going to be all these extra layers, just an absorbent amount of oversight. Okay, and voter governed. Right. So I think with that, like that for me would offer the most transparency.
That's still possible.
And a paper trail. And I think that it should be like that. I always felt like the introduction to technology was a way to separate the transparency. It was a way to create a fissure in there, because it's not about who's voting, it's about who's counting the votes.
Right.
So I go into a booth, I close the curtain, I cast my ballot, open. I don't know what happens to that. Zeros and ones, it goes somewhere. Right. How do I know? How do they know? There's equal representation, but they're not really counting. They're just monitoring that nobody's going into somebody else's booth, or nobody's, claiming to be somebody else. But the actual numbers, the actual tally, okay, it goes on a thumb drive or it goes through some sort of cable, and then whatever comes out the other side, who knows? We just have to rely on what they said. That's what scares me.
Right. Well,
you understand where I'm coming from?
I understand, but also keep in mind, it's like everything you just mentioned, whether it's paper ballots or not, that's still possible on the blockchain system. Because think about it. Because like I would rather have two fail safes than just one. Because if we're just doing paper ballots, that's still not stopping anybody from putting in false ballots. There's still need.
No, it's not.
You would still need.
Well, we need ID.
Right. You would still need voter ID to verify that. But at that same time, you not only have a chain of ballots, right? Like I'll give you an example. If we have 100 ballots that came in, each of these ballots have to be logged onto the blockchain. The blockchain is public. Anybody can see which votes are coming in, when they're coming in real time, right? So if there's 100 ballots that get logged, and on the blockchain it's showing 100 ballots, but at the end of the day when they're counting ballots they only have 80, well, how did these ballots get on the blockchain?
Right.
That means someone destroyed 20 of these ballots.
Right.
So now that and then you can see at what time those votes came in. Okay, according to the blockchain, these 20 votes came in the last hour of the day. Now we need to find out who were these people that voted. Hey, did you vote at the machine? Yes, I did vote at the machine. That means something's going on internally, which means one of you guys that are counting the ballots destroyed the ballots. There's no way around it.
Right.
So it's like, and they kind of try to make a system like that with the new system, with the new ballots, where they give you the paper and you put it in and you do it digitally, and then the paper disappears. It probably goes in the shredder for all we know. But if that's the case, you have two ways of verifying. Well, actually, three ways of verifying. One, you have my ID, which has now been logged. I voted in paper. You have the paper record. And then that same paper record gets logged onto the blockchain, which is now also public. Now we have three methods of determining how I legitimately was the one who did this vote.
Right. I had to cross-reference everything.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just about who's voting. It's also about how many votes.
Correct.
And things like that. So, all right. I'm going to take what you said. I'm going to let that marinate. It sounds a lot better than I anticipated.
What did you initially think?
No. Look, it's just the introduction of technology. I think a lot of times the technology can be used by the bad actors.
Of course, yeah.
I think carpet bombing the entire state with unsolicited mail-in ballots, all these things is just another layer to the theft that goes on during the elections. They know what they're doing, and they take advantage of the voters' trust in the system.
And the craziest part is the United States. The United States is one of the few countries that doesn't require ID to vote, which is baffling.
It's stupid.
About 340 million people.
You have to.
And
it's the dumbest thing.
I did a video back in 2021 where I was at my cousin's house, and on his fridge he had a picture of my aunt's voter ID card from Ghana. Right, It was from 1963 or something like that. Fingerprint on there and everything. Right, so I'm like, you mean to tell me since 1963 in Ghana, in West Africa, everyone's voting with an ID? So let me tell you how how the election process goes in Ghana, right? Let's say me and you want to vote, right? I'm a Ghanaian citizen. You've lived in Ghana for years, but you're not a citizen, right? Or you are a citizen, but you don't have a voter ID, right? The only way that you can go into that polling station and vote is you need to get 2 Ghanaian citizens with identification and proof. And you have to get an affidavit from a judge swearing to God that you're a Ghanaian and everything you're doing is legitimate. If for whatever reason you're lying and you're not a Ghanaian and there's an investigation after it's all said and done, all 3 of us are going to prison. Yeah. Because it's like if you don't have an ID, but you're just some guy who lives in the village, you need these 2 people to vouch for you. 2 legitimate citizens need to vouch for you.
Oh, wow.
And if not, and no one wants to go to jail for a lie.
Right.
So it's not worth it.
Yeah.
And you've been doing this since the 60s with a paper card. Now it's more advanced. Now it's got biometrics and all kinds of stuff. But the United States, if you get an ID, you're a racist. You're somehow hurting black people. You can mail the driver's license today. All right, today everybody's getting their driver's license. I haven't been to the DMV since COVID.
But what if you don't know how to use the mail, Billy? I mean,
yeah, okay. Good luck. Listen, man. I
never understood that. How come? Well, why does Chuck Schumer think that black people can go and they can get an EBT card, in Harlem, but they can't get a voter ID? I don't understand that.
I'll do you one even simpler.
It was so insulting.
You want to get cigarettes? You want to get a Black and Mild? You want to get a beer? You gotta have ID, bro. Like, I don't know any black person, honestly, that does not have ID. I know
you guys aren't fooling anybody.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's so stupid and insulting. Okay?
Extremely insulting.
All right, let's get controversial.
Sure, let's go.
All right, man.
Let's go.
All right. So, in Paterson, I saw. I've been wanting to talk about this, so you get my take. I'll get your take first, and then I'll comment on it. In Paterson, a few weeks ago, we had a town celebration. I believe it was Ramadan. At the same time, some of the council members, I guess there was an election within the council, and they now have a Muslim majority in Paterson.
That's not true, actually.
It's not true?
It's not true. There is no Muslim majority.
I could have sworn that's what I read.
I can go into more detail, but I'll let you continue.
All right. But regardless, from the clips that I saw, they were celebrating there, and it didn't, for me, what I saw, it wasn't really a celebration of the holiday and the faith. For me, what I saw, it was almost like the way they were talking. It was almost like a validation of a conquest. Okay, and now you go and we have street names being renamed and signs going up, and this part of the community now almost like putting their flag and like claiming this is Little Palestine now. Okay, how do the people in the community respond to that? Because the Muslim portion of the community is a minority still.
Yeah,
it's mostly Hispanic in Patterson, and you have a black population.
Like the black population is actually the biggest minority in Patterson. The black population makes up about 10% of Patterson right now.
How large is the Muslim population in Patterson?
I'd say about 17-20%.
Okay, it's still a minority.
It's majority Hispanic.
It's a large minority. Okay, but it's still
it's larger than a black minority, for
right?
Sure.
But it's still a minority, and I just thought that was a little. For me, it was over the line, and then something that something else that I saw that went viral was the police officer in Paterson who had the Palestine flag on his vest. Mm-hmm. I think that this is over the dangerous territory.
I agree.
That some people they're overstepping. So before I comment on it, or we get into a back and forth about it, or a conversation, because I think we're probably on the same page. But I just wanted to give you an opportunity to comment on that.
Sure. So I've and I can't even count how many times I've seen those videos. It was to the point that I even publicly made a comment about both situations on X. So I want to clear up a couple of misconceptions. So a lot of people, and I understand the concern because it does concern me as well too. You see what's going on in Dearborn, Michigan. You see what's going on in Texas. There's these large Muslim populations that are happening.
Like Epic City.
Yeah, that's what it's called, Epic City. That's not really what's happening in Paterson. What I will say is that there's a large portion of Paterson that is predominantly Middle Eastern, right? But it's not predominantly Palestinian like people think. There's a lot of Palestinians that are there, but there's Turkish, Jordan, Syrian, Egyptians, all kinds of people, and that makes up the 6th ward of Paterson. The remainder of the city is predominantly Hispanic. 4th ward is predominantly African American. 4th ward is where I live. The 6th ward, where the majority of the Muslim population is, this is where they created Little Palestine. I don't have an issue with that. Let me tell you what I do have an issue with. Because if I have an issue with Little Palestine, I should also have an issue with Little Italy, Little Japan, Little Korea, all these other small towns. At the end of the day, there's a large group of people that live there, and I have no problem with that. As for the street renaming things, that's not something that's isolated to just what happened with Palestine Way. Like, there's probably in the past 8 years now, probably been about 15, 16 different streets that have been renamed either after the demographic of people that make up that area or key figures in the community that make up that area. So that's not something that's new. Also, that Little Palestine sign has been there for years. Like, that's not a new thing.
It's not?
No, that's not.
When did that go up?
That was probably like 2010 or something.
Why would it go up, though? And this is going to be my pushback, because I agree with you. Just like in Manhattan, we have a Little Italy, or we have a Chinatown, or whatever, where some of these, like a specific demographic will gravitate in a certain area over a period of time. A certain demographic has gravitated and has grown there, and they're basically the majority of the population in that ward, or whatever. Okay, but when I go to Little Italy, there's no sign saying that I'm in Little Italy. There's no flag there where we're claiming this as our own. There's no like flag or sign saying I'm now entering Chinatown. It just happens to be this is where we live. This is sort of the nickname that has been given to this area because over time the Chinese have basically, this is kind of their domain. They're flocking here, or the Italians are flocking in Little Italy. But like nobody's, setting their flag there and making the claim. That's where I think like it's kind of over the like even a sign like Little Palestine. Like why would there be a sign even if it was years ago? Why would you do that? It's not Little Palestine. It's Paterson. So like if it was a nickname and people started calling it, like that section of Paterson, I would get it. But then to put the sign there, it's kind of weird.
People have referred to it for that for several years. And another thing I want to say is this mayor Andre Saye, he's what we like to call what's the name they used to call him? They used to call him like Camera King or Camera Queen or something like that. Like he's a very virtue signaling type of mayor. Right? I
saw that in the video.
Well, yeah. But that's with every community. He does that. Right? So it was his idea to come and put this sign into the city. Even me still personally, like I understand where you're coming from. Like, no one else put a sign there.
It's just chipping away.
This is what I have. I think the police officer with the flag sends a far more concerning message than the sign does.
It's more of a I agree with you. I think the sign is like chipping away. It's sort of going over the line. Yes, the flag. I agree with you.
I understand where you're coming from, and the second issue that I have. The second issue that I have is the comment that the mayor said, right? What the mayor said was that Paterson is the capital of Palestine in New Jersey or in the United States. I have an issue with because if we said that this is the capital of Ghana in the United States, I'd have an issue with that. No other country's capital is here in the United States. Paterson is Paterson. Everyone across the United States we're all Americans here, right? If you want to say this is your small group and this is your little town, and to be fair, you guys also invested a lot of money in this part of town, so you guys want to put up a sign, I got no issue with that. Now, when you have our Paterson police officers who are also representing the city of Paterson, Paterson being an American city in the state of New Jersey, which means you are representing the United States, you cannot have a flag, and I've looked up the flag code and everything, and it's the same thing in the military. In the military, you're not going to wear any other flag other than the American flag.
One flag policy.
Unless there are stipulations when a alternate flag can be worn, though. For example, if you're working with a joint group, like you have a Canadian and American flag side by side, but with police officers, the pushback I hear from a lot of Palestinians is like, well, what about the Irish cops that wear the American flag on their uniform? And I was like, I've got no issue with that. Here's the difference between what they're doing and what this police officer has done.
Hold on, rewind. What do you mean the Irish cops? You mean Irish cops in Ireland?
No,
or
in
cops
United,
here
in,
that
in
just
United
happen
States.
to be Irish?
No, Irish cops in the United States that wear...
But it's an American flag, so what?
No, hang on, hear me out. But he's talking about Irish cops that wear the American flag on their uniform. And I explained to everyone that asked this, I was like, the difference between the cops that you see doing this or the firefighters you see doing this is the flags that they're wearing still adhere to American flag code. If you're going to have the Palestinian flag, it cannot be larger than the American flag. It also cannot be prominent in front of your
I don't even think it should be there.
Agree. That's granted, but at the end of the day, this is what the code says. I'm just speaking from a legal standpoint here. If you're going to wear a flag in front of it, the American flag must be flanking it, and the flag alongside it either needs to be smaller or of equal size. There was no American flag. People say, well, the American flag is on his patch. Yeah, but this one is prominent.
Right, it's prominent. It's on his chest, and it was big.
Right?
Yeah.
If you want to represent it with the pin, you want to represent it with a little flag or whatever, to each their own, free country, whatever. I personally don't believe that there should be any kind of free speech like that, but at the end of the day, every police department has their own uniform code, and every person that's wearing uniform must be uniform across the board. If the state allows for you to wear an alternate uniform flag, like the pride flag, for example, that's another thing people bring up. Well, what about people that wear the pride flag? Well, that is a flag that is approved by the police departments, and you're allowed to wear that, but you can't wear the pride flag prominently on your uniform. It must be flanked by an American flag of equal size. So the issue that I have with that is the people in that area say, well, some people feel unsafe, and they might feel safer if they see someone coming with the flag that's from the Middle East that they represent. But then I push back with, well, what if it's someone who's Jewish, right? And he came down and he had the Israeli flag prominent. Like, would that not make you feel uncomfortable? Would that, if a Jewish person came and had to deal with a Palestinian officer, is there going to be bias? That's the reason why there are no political flags, or there are no alternative flags. You're supposed to represent the United States. People that come to this country, people that live in this country, are looking to you to be the peacekeeper. So if you're going to say, like, well, if I've got this flag, people can see that maybe I speak Arabic and that's appreciative, then wear a little pin that says I speak Arabic, or whatever the phrase is that says you speak Arabic. If you're going to go out there and prominently display that, and you're walking around in an American uniform, that is a very serious problem, and that's a negative precedent. Because what that shows me, and I've seen this in England, because I see where you're going with this. When I lived in England back in 2010, I don't know how Cambridge looks today, but I saw something very concerning, because Cambridge, from what I grew up knowing, was, it's Cambridge University, it's so beautiful, blah, blah, tea and biscuits, it's just England, right? But there was this one area, Mill Road, that I used to go down, and there wasn't a single English person in sight, not even like a black English or black British person in sight. It was practically all Muslim. And they had, Muslim security forces that would, protect the streets or patrol the streets. They had like these little Sharia courts where they had a completely different jurisdiction than what was happening within the UK government. So they kind of had their own ecosystem within the country. And now it's at a completely unprecedented rate. And what led to that, and I believe what led to that, was the fact that the police departments also started to become integrated with this same ideology. If you want to have an opinion on where you live in your area, and you want to have some pride in what you got, that's one thing. But once it starts to bleed into our legal system, and it starts to bleed into our defense systems as well too, that is an issue that can be used against the people eventually. And I saw it happen firsthand. And I'm not certain if that's what's going on in Dearborn or in Epic City, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's the next step that they're going towards.
Okay, well, look, first of all, I agree with a lot of what you said. I don't agree that and I'm not saying that this isn't the law. It could very well be the law. I wouldn't agree if the law allowed any other flag other than the American flag.
I think it should be that way.
Yeah, there should, in my opinion, be a one flag policy. If you're going to work in government or represent authority in any way, from the top down in American government, okay, American flag only. And if you're serving, whether it's in our armed forces or for the community, like congressman or whatever, you have to be America first, America flag only. Okay, you have to believe in America. You love being an American. You want to sustain American values, okay? Because we have to be protectionist,
right?
Okay, of America. The problem that I have and the problem that I see, and this is what has happened in Europe, and Europe, in my opinion, should be, a sign for us. It's out there in the open. After that vacuum was filled by ISIS, right. Okay, when we pulled our troops out there, and you had all that fighting going on, and Muslims were killing Muslims, and you had all those refugees, and what's her face, the Prime Minister of Germany, that
Angela
woman, Angela Merkel, Demon. She allowed 1 million of these people to come into her country. I understand why. Again, it's kind of a virtue signal. Germany, having done what they did to the Jews, it was an opportunity, for them to be a little accept. But okay, she led that charge in Europe, and everybody else followed. And there were all these countries, with some exceptions, like Poland. Okay, Muslims all over the place. Now, the most popular name in Europe, Muhammad.
Well, it's in Ireland.
Yeah, in Ireland, in England, in France, and we've seen now over the course of the last 20 years. And look, this isn't me being against Islam. I'm going to get there in just a second. Okay, but you're introducing another culture. Okay, you're opening the floodgates to another culture. Things, in the immediate, there's going to be a lot of headbutting, coming to a head, and things aren't going to gel. They're not going to mix. It's one culture coming in and, finding conflict with other cultures. So we have these warnings. We see what's going on in Europe, and it should be a clear sign for us. And a lot of what's going on there, I see, is conquest, okay? Because when I was growing up back in the 80s, when I was in school, elementary school, I was the only Jew in my class, okay? My dad's from Israel, immigrant, came here, okay? I was the only Jew growing up until I got to middle school, only Jew in my grade. Then some other Jews, I was going to Hebrew school, got my bar mitzvah, whatever, okay? I also knew some Muslim kids, okay? There was only, we didn't have one Muslim in my grade when I was growing up until I got to middle school. Then there were like 2 Muslim kids, and I had Muslim friends. My sister had one friend who was also Muslim, but it was different. It was just different. Everybody, that whether you were Christian, whether you were Jew, whether you were Muslim, you did your thing at home. You had your celebrations on the day of your high holidays during the year. Everybody knew. Nobody was ashamed of anything, like we are the world, everyone holding hands in the edge. No big deal. And I feel like there are a lot of people in the Muslim community who agree with me. I've spoken with a lot of them, and they see not just what's happening in Paterson, but like we said, in like Texas and things like that with Epic City. There's a different group of people who, yes, are also Muslim, but they're not moderate. Their goal seems to be conquest, and they keep chipping away and trying to erode the fabric of America, because they want. So
well, that's in their doctrine, to be honest. Like that's in the Islamic doctrine. Yes, it's like to spread Islam to the world. I get it.
Tell me what you think when you see this, Billy.
We're done hiding. We're done. We're done being tortured and hurt and judged. This is the correct religion. This is the religion that all of humanity needs to be a part of, Islam. And we will not stop until it enters every home. So I want you to repeat after me. I want to hear it in every single district. It should tremble. Brooklyn should hear it. The Bronx should hear it. Queens should hear it. Say it as if the Ummah depends on this, my brothers and sisters. La ilaha illallah! La ilaha illallah! no God worthy of worship except Allah, the God of Jesus, the God of Moses, the God of Abraham, and the God of the last and final prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam.
Yeah, I saw this the other day.
You saw it the other day?
Yeah, I've seen this.
So that's in Times Square?
Mm-hmm.
What's your reaction when you see something like that?
I think it's absurd what they're doing.
Do you think that should be protected under freedom of speech?
The only reason why I say it should be protected under freedom of speech is because it's a religion and it's a religious belief. Do I agree with Islam? No. Do I agree with their ideology? Absolutely not. But in order for...
I'm not even asking that.
Okay, so then what exactly are you asking?
Because he's not praising Allah here. Like when I see this video, I see someone who is inciting a movement against America. We're a Judeo-Christian nation, right? So this guy and his followers and people who are cheering on and agreeing with what this guy is saying, that this to me is more along the lines of an invasion. This is how I interpret this. He's saying very clearly that they're not going to stop until Islam is in every home. For me, that's an invasion, and it infringes on the rights of other Americans and their freedom to religion. This is a threat. I think that's clear. Mm-hmm. Do you not agree with that?
No, I'm not saying that it's not a threat. What I'm saying is, in order to address that issue, how do you deal with it? Because there's several problems you run into, and a lot of people don't like my position on this, but this is just a God honest fact, right? I don't agree with any. I'm a diehard Christian. I don't agree with any of the things that they say in Islam, but there's no way to address that problem without tying up the United States government in all kinds of litigation, violating freedom of speech, violating religious liberties, violating a lot of these things. I don't agree with their religion.
I don't think it's a freedom of speech thing. I really don't. I think it crosses the line. I think it's an incitement to violence, however minor it may be.
You see, but then also at the same time, if you're going to go and use the terminology that it's an incitement to violence, there has to be actual violent rhetoric that's being told. Aggressive.
Is there not?
That's aggressive rhetoric, is what I see. I don't see it as violence. If you said we're going to go out there, we're going to attack, and we're going to burn, and we're going to do whatever, that's one thing.
They're not going to stop until it's in every home.
That's understandable, but I say that even politically. Like, I'm not going to stop running until I become the congress,man. I'm not going to stop knocking every single door.
Good point.
You know, so it's
good
like
point.
That's why I'm saying, because like I see where you're going with it, but we have.
But this rhetoric, very dangerous. Extremely dangerous, and this is where I'm saying it's like they're chipping away.
Yeah.
They're pushing to see how far they can take it. In the meantime, we don't have the tools or the levers in our laws to push back against this the way we should be able to. The only way I see it is you have to cut off immigration.
I agree. I agree with you.
It doesn't even have to be to. Just
cut it off
limited to Islamic states. Okay, just everywhere. I think we got a big problem, and I think we need to let things simmer down a little bit, allow people to assimilate the next generations, things like. But this is a problem, and then also, things like epic cities and things like this. We could run into problems with what may become autonomous zones.
You see,
and then they're going to want to govern within the own boundaries that they set, and they're going to discourage police, and police might not even want to go in there.
You see
you know
now,
what I mean?
Now you're on the same. Now you're on the same. On the same chain of logic that I'm on, because like I believe that immigration across the board needs to stop, at least for like another 10, 15 years.
All right, so we're in agreement.
No, so that's because that's the only way you fix this issue.
Yeah.
Right? That's the only way you fix this issue.
I mean, one step, it's one layer to the cake.
Well, and that's just with the Middle East and people that are coming with that same kind of rhetoric. The same goes for people coming in here smuggling drugs and all kinds of stuff. But that's one thing. Now, when you were talking about with places like Dearborn and with Epic City, now we're talking. Now things could actually be done from a federal level at that point. We're like, well, we cannot have independent or autonomous police forces or a secondary law that's secondary to the Texas Constitution or the federal Constitution. These are executive orders that President Trump needs to put in place like now. If that doesn't change, then if they could simply say, well, we're a private organization or a private group or a private community.
They better do it quick.
So that's how now you're thinking like me. because you don't solve, because a lot of people say, hey, Billy, you got to go and say something about, the overgrowing Palestinian population in Paterson and what's going on, or taking over the city. And I'm like, I really don't have to say anything, because understand that by me saying something and going against that, like I said, we're going to be violating all kinds of laws by doing that. Now, if you want me to put things in place or put laws in place, which I think President Trump should do, that prevent secondary legal systems or secondary or second-class citizenship type scenarios in these individual towns or in these groups, I think it should apply all across the country where nothing like that can be done. Halt immigration as well, too, so that we can actually focus on the people here. We already got 345 million people. We can't afford to bring anybody in. We're already sending people out, and our immigration system is already as broken as it is. So we have a lot of things that we have a lot of house cleaning and a lot of housekeeping we have to do before we ever open up these gates. And that situation is one of them right there.
I'm just worried about it. I think, there were a lot of threats, and some of those threats are being addressed and being addressed very aggressively. I'm very proud of this administration.
But that's what I'm saying, though.
But this is one of them.
But that's what I'm saying, though. So now you're on the same page to be like, everyone that was making credible threats has been dealt with. Right? That guy knew what he was doing. He knew what he was saying. He knew I could say, we could fight like hell. Trump also told you to fight like hell on January 6th, and they called him a terrorist. Right. So it's like the same exact position that you're trying that you're conveying is the same thing they can use in their defense.
Well, he also said peacefully and patriotically.
Right.
We're going to march to the Capitol and make our voices heard. I don't think that's what that guy was saying.
No, that's
does that sound like?
But that's not my point. That's not my point. Whether that's what he said or not. What I'm saying is like him when you were saying that. Well, we're not going to stop until every single person becomes Islamic
until it enters every single home.
Until it enters every single home, right? Trump saying, we're going to fight like hell. We're going to peacefully and patriotically march, or even fight when he got shot in the head. The media and the left took every opportunity to say he's trying to incite violence. No, he wasn't. It was very obvious what he was trying to convey.
It was very obvious. Nobody's buying that lie. And
you're going to run into the same problem trying to fight that. So it's like
I think there are more people that are going to see something like this, and they're going to feel threatened by something like that. They're not going to feel threatened by Trump getting up and putting his fist in the air after he gets shot.
That's not my point. That's not my point. But look at how many people had their lives ruined and destroyed and locked up after January 6th just because people believed that rhetoric. You see what I'm saying? People got locked up and we were convinced and told these people were all terrorists because they wanted to fight for Trump, or they wanted to go and make their voices heard. Whether we agree with what they're saying or not, or how they're breaking it down, or the word or the verbiage or whatever, you could put them in a situation where it's like, well, now we're the victims. You're coming at us, and all we want to do is spread Islam. All we want to do is go and spread our... So the way you resolve that is we need to focus on what's happening here in the United States, prevent these groups from... And this should apply for every religion. Prevent these groups from creating enclaves where they push out actual Americans and continue to expand. That's the only solution you have. Other than that, you're going to tie up the government in legal battles that we're guaranteed to lose.
I don't know, Billy. Like I look at stuff like this, and
because the only other option,
it's scary, because I feel like it's going to get to a point where if the government, because government is the way we have our government designed, it was actually created to have gridlock. Okay, it's meant to move slow, and if this moves as if dealing with this, at a snail's pace, it doesn't take care of it. I feel like things are going to come to a head, and the people who are armed up in this country, I feel like they may take it into their own hands, and it's going to get very, very. I don't want to say violent, but something's going to happen that somebody's not going to like, or someone's going to get pushed too far, and it's going to set somebody off. And all it does is take one incident, and then everything else snowballs, and it may just be out of the government's hands. It scares me, is what I'm saying, because in Europe they don't have the Second Amendment like we do. Okay, they don't have that, and a lot of people are upset. So, like, if it's a father whose daughter was raped in Sweden or Norway by these refugees or whatever, it's different over there. Like over here, like I just feel like people aren't going to stand for that shit.
Well, I know they're not going to stand for it, which
You
is
know?
why I think that is because there's only two options.
That's why I'd like to see it simmer down.
There's only two options that the president has from this, because even as a congressperson, I have no say other than presenting legislation.
Right.
There's only two options. It's either legislation passes through Congress, where it's like we prevent these outside cities and we allow full assimilation, or the second option, the president does it through executive order, or the third option, national emergency, he cracks down. Those are the only three options.
Either way, you're slapped with legalities, and there's going to be pushback in the press, pushback from the people that you're trying to, simmer down, like these characters. I get it, but I think it's necessary to do it. Even if you don't win that battle, like it starts the process, and at least it slows it down. You're putting a hurdle in front of this some way, somehow, so it doesn't like aggressively expand and then all of a sudden get out of control where we can't handle it. So something, in my opinion, something really needs to be done about this, regardless of what the consequences are going to be legally, whether you think we can win or whether we can't. I think something has to be done just to put the hurdle in front of it in the speed bumps and slow it down.
Executive order.
Do you agree?
I think an executive order is the most streamlined way to deal with that.
Right.
An executive order.
And just want to be clear, this is nothing against Islam whatsoever. I believe everybody has the right to their faith. This is about me calling out people who are trying to push their faith on others. This is America. Okay, everybody's got the right to their own faith. We just want, no one religion gets to trump the Constitution. That's all where I'm coming from. And I know our audience understands that, but I want everybody
just want to make it clear.
I just want to make it clear. We don't want anything getting taken out of context. All right. Let's see. Do you see that shooting, that couple in D.C.? That Jewish couple?
I saw it. I don't know the story. I just saw it on Instagram in passing. I don't know the story. I don't know what happened.
Israel embassy staffers, Yaron and Sarah, were fatally shot outside Capitol Jewish Museum in D.C. I think they were like diplomats or something like that. I don't know. But the guy that they were arrested, I think it was Hispanic, I forget his name. Suspect reportedly shouted "Free Palestine," incident being treated as a targeted anti-Semitic attack. Yeah, it's. But I'm just saying, like between this and like all the rhetoric that you see, like surrounding, Israel and Palestine and the conflict in America, I have a bad feeling that it's. This is just another sign like things are going to escalate. We're going to see like another Kristallnacht in Germany.
Highly doubt that'll happen in the United States.
Again, because we have the Second Amendment, but
well, there's that too.
but still, it's happening. You see what's happening on college campuses and stuff like that. It's tough, and like a lot of these people aren't doing anything about it, and that's why Trump is pulling their funding. I was so happy to see that he's pulling the funding.
I honestly don't think that federal government should be funding colleges. Period. Forget about just those schools.
That too, 100%.
Because I'm like, listen, man, you look at some of these endowment funds, and they've got billions and billions and billions. Why are you still getting my money? Why are we still paying for you? Why is tuition still going so high? You're getting our capital. Even outside of those protests, to me, I even saw that as a virtue signal, because I'm like, well, why are we still paying the money to begin with? You've got alumni still paying into the school, tuitions are high, and you're getting federal funding, and you're making all this money off of our people while children are drowning students are drowning under student loan debt. Like, you should stop getting our money, in my opinion.
And they're graduating with like gender studies degrees.
Exactly.
What the hell?
Exactly. I don't want to like me. I'm a very simple man. I don't like taxes. I think any way we can cut taxes or reduce taxes or defer taxes or eliminate taxes altogether, I'm 100% for that. Because at the end of the day, our money is going to be spent on things nobody agrees with, right? I don't agree with these kids being taught all this nonsense in school. I'm not even in college. I couldn't afford to go to college. I went to the military to go and get my education, So why am I paying for anybody else?
Is that why you entered the military?
No, that's
I wanted to ask you about that. How'd you wind up as an Air Force?
So that's a funny story. The only other place I told the story was on Tim Pool's show. Was the last time I talked about it. Was
You were on Tim's show?
That was in 2020.
Really?
Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah, when I was still up and coming. But the reason why I joined the military was honestly, I'm at heart, I'm a pacifist, right? Like, I'll beat the shit. I don't want to curse.
No, it's okay.
I'll beat the shit out of somebody.
We drop F-bombs on the show.
Look,
it's all right.
listen, don't get it messed up. Like, I will beat the crap out of somebody, you know. But I'm not big on war. Was never big on war. I feel that a lot of problems in not just our country, but across the globe can be resolved through negotiation, through diplomacy and strategy. And I think seeing what President Trump is doing in such a short period of time is evidence of that. All my life, Obama, we got to go and bomb Libya and bomb Iran and bomb these people and all this stuff. And it just shakes the bee's nest, causes more damage, more people die. Now there's refugees all over. So war does not solve any of our issues, right? I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what your perspective is or who you know that's dying, right? War is not going to resolve it, right? There's ways to get it done. With me though, at the same time, this was 2009, so this was 8 years after 9/11 happened, and it's easy for I always had this mentality where it's like, you know, I love this country, I love the opportunity it's brought for my family, my relatives that came here, all of them legally, by the way. But you know, it's been a great privilege to be an American, to be born in this country. And I've always maintained the perspective that it's easy to talk crap from the outsides, right? It's like, if I can sit here and believe it or not, there was a time where I almost became a socialist. A lot of people don't know that, but this was 2008. I'm like going to all the rah protests, you know, and it's easy to talk negatively about the government without actually being in. So I initially wanted to join the Marine Corps. And when I went to the recruiter, the Marine Corps recruiter's like, you've got a great ASVAB score. Why the hell do you want to be a grunt?
A great what?
ASVAB. Like, that's ASVAB is a score they use to scale, you know, how well or how proficient you are, and they determine which category you're going to based off it. I was like, you got a high score. Like, why the hell do you want to be an infantry guy in the Marine Corps? And I was a young guy. Like, I just want to shoot. I want to kill stuff. You know, I don't know. You know? And they're like, I don't know, that's kind of dumb. Like, let me go and get this Air Force guy. He brought the Air Force recruiter over. And, you know, the Air Force recruiter kind of just talked me into it. And he was like, listen, when you're in the Air Force, you got a very good score. You can learn a skill that you can likely do when you get out of the military. So it made sense, and I decided to join it. And
did you fly, or you just worked on the planes?
No, that's also a misconception, man. It takes years before you can fly a plane.
Okay.
It was like $20 million
I don't
planes.
know, man.
Yeah, like, they're not gonna put Joe Blow from Paterson.
No,
Jersey,
when I read that you were an Air Force fan, I was like, is he like some Pete Mitchell or something?
No. So first off, only officers can fly, and enlisted can't fly. Officers have to fly, and you go through about maybe 4 to 8 years of pilot training before you ever set foot in one of these fighter jets. Like, they're not gonna put anybody in there.
But you worked on the planes.
No, I worked on the machinery that was used to service the plane. So generators, air conditioners, hydraulic test systems, pneumatic carts. Right. You know, like when you go to the airport, those machines they bring and connect to the planes. Yeah. I worked on all that. So about 300, maybe 400 pieces of equipment. And it always felt like a normal job to me. It just felt like work. It didn't even really dawn on me I was in the military until Operation Odyssey Dawn started. That was when Barack Obama said we're going to create a humanitarian no-fly zone over Libya, which was absolute nonsense. Like, what happened in Libya did not need to happen at all. We were completely sold a lie. Here,
are we talking about what happened with Christopher Steele?
No. I'm not talking about what happened with Christopher Steele. This was after Christopher Steele. This was after Christopher Steele. This is when we went and we invaded Libya, and then we eventually caught Gaddafi.
Right. We got him out of there.
That was Odyssey Dawn.
Okay.
Right. Well, the Christopher Steele thing was you're talking about the Benghazi incident. That was before.
Yeah.
That was way before that. That was way before that happened. But we were told in the military and on base, you could only get AFN and CNN. AFN is like Armed Forces Network. You could only get those two channels on the base. And they were telling us, like, oh, well, we have to create this humanitarian no-fly zone over Libya because Gaddafi is just bombing his own people, which was absolute BS. These moderate rebels that we were supposedly helping, these guys were terrorists from various groups, al-Nusra, remnants of al-Qaeda, all these other groups. These were the people that our government is supporting. So I thought nothing of it until the day the operation actually begun. And when the operation actually begun, I go to the squadron base, the squadron building, and the base commander's up there. And he says, hey, we're going to have a no-fly zone over Libya until, mission accomplished according to the POTUS. Until then, you guys are going to be working 16-hour shifts, and until then, that just is what it is.
Right.
And that's the first time I was in the military. Like, out of all the time, it's the first time that it dawned on me, like, oh, crap, like, you're actually in the military. This is not just a job. Like, people are about to die tonight, And, I raised my hand, which you're not supposed to do. It's always a rhetorical question. Any questions? Right. But I'm a fool. I raised my hand, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Why are we going to go and send our jets? Because our base, RAF Mildenhall, we had a sister base, RAF Lakenheath. They had all the fighter jets. Our base was the support base, in-air refueling. And I just thought that it was so stupid. I was like, why are we sending our jets and sending our men to go fly over Libya, to go and bomb Libya, to stop Libya from bombing Libya? That just does not make any sense. And this is what CNN's talking about. This is what AFN's talking about. And then I go out to my girlfriend at the time. I go to her house and I start watching the news, and I start looking at what BBC's talking about, France 24, Al Jazeera, RT, all these other foreign, and in England you can get practically every news channel on the television, and they're saying a completely different story than what CNN and AFN is telling us in the United States. There were hundreds of thousands of people in Tripoli that were protesting, many of them in support of Gaddafi. They were aware of the fact that America was coming to bomb them long before we, the troops, even knew that Operation Odyssey Dawn was about to happen. So they came out there and they were protesting in support of him. They're like, we don't like these moderate rebels that Barack Obama keeps talking about. A lot of people had support for Gaddafi. Within a matter of months, we completely leveled that country. They kill Gaddafi in the middle of the streets. They start funneling oil from Libya through Syria, through Turkey into Syria. We allow this to happen. ISIS becomes what it is right now. They kill hundreds of thousands of people across the Middle East. Now we got more of our guys going out there and fighting. In fact, when Operation Odyssey Dawn happened, one of our fighter jets at RAF Lakenheath got shot, and they were able to rescue the guy in one of those missions. And that really bothered me, because I'm like, what if that guy didn't make it? Right? We didn't have to go over there. This country is not a threat to our Constitution. It's not a threat to our way of life. Congress was also in recess during the time this happened. Barack Obama went and got support from the UN and NATO to utilize our forces to go and bomb a foreign country. And that's what it became apparent to me, that it's like, we're not fighting for the United States. We're fighting to prop up foreign interests and to prop up a war machine. This has nothing to do with keeping us safe. And by doing so, and Trump this is one of the main reasons why I ended up supporting Trump, because I was not a big fan of Trump in the very beginning. A lot of people don't know that.
Okay.
I actually did not like Trump my entire life. My childhood growing up, my father.
Why? Because of The Apprentice?
No, even long before The Apprentice was even a show.
Really?
Like, my father was a huge Trump fan. Like,
okay.
Because my father looked at Trump and saw him as like the definition of the American dream.
Yeah.
Golden tower, golden toilet, nice hair, flying the jet, supermodel. That's the guy, So my father was if my father was alive, he would be like the greatest like campaigner for my campaign. You would have loved him. Everybody would have loved him. My father would probably be giving speeches. But my father was very big on him, and I never really liked Trump because I couldn't relate. I grew up in the hood. I'm from Paterson. I have no connection with this guy. I didn't understand why other rappers liked him or why anyone else liked him. I was like, we'll never be like Trump. That's just my mindset. But when Trump came out and he said that the founder of ISIS is Barack Obama. You remember when he made that statement?
Yes.
That was 100% true. And that right there woke me up, because no other politician called that out. No other politician called it out. And I was very bitter, and I'm sorry I'm getting a little bit passionate.
No, it's fine. Good.
I was very bitter when I left the military, because I just could not, and it really messed I didn't see any like combat or anything crazy, but like psychologically, like it really messed me up, because I felt like that I'd been lied to. Everything that I thought our military was doing, it just became clear to me that I suspended disbelief and was like, I can't talk nonsense about Bush or Obama or what's going on in Iraq and Afghanistan. Let me just serve my country. And then after being a part of that mission and seeing how nonsensical it was, and it only led to more death, it led to the refugee crisis, it led to the expansion of ISIS. And then when Trump gets elected and he wipes out ISIS in a matter of months, yet for almost 6 years under Barack Obama, we got Americans getting hurt, civilians getting killed, other Muslims getting killed, something that could have been completely prevented. The crisis that's going on in Europe could have been completely prevented. The refugee crisis, the refugees coming to the United States, all this could have been prevented had we not gone and done that war in Libya. And it's just led to a cascading effect. So that's what what really woke me up. So to answer your question, I joined the military because my father passed away. I, wanted to be able to help at home, and also because I love this country, and I didn't want to be a hypocrite talking about the military without actually being a part of the military. And I felt that I had something to prove. I'm like, you gave so much to us, like the least I could do is serve my country.
Well, thank you so much for doing it. Thank
Yeah.
you for your service and everything. It's your life story is great. It's very unique,
pretty funny.
but it's great. So Obama created you too. I was talking on the
Barack-
previous podcast. Barack created me also.
Barack is why I'm Republican, man.
in a different way. Yeah, I voted for him,
Yeah.
and then after like a year or two, I was just like, man. He pulled the freaking wool over my eyes.
Yeah,
All of
everybody
it.
voted for him.
Yeah, because I wasn't too into politics, like everybody else. You're just voting with your heart and what you think is going to be good.
You sounded good on paper.
Yeah.
Well,
sounded good.
actually, who it really was that made me become conservative was Ron Paul. Right before I went into the
Are
military.
you like libertarian conservative?
I consider myself a nationalist, to be honest.
Okay.
I consider myself more of a nationalist, but libertarian.
A white nationalist?
A nationalist, an American nationalist, man. Like I think that every nation should be a nationalistic nation. You should
100%.
be proud. You
Yeah.
should be proud of your country, and you should want your country to succeed above all countries, no matter what. I think that's a reasonable logic to have. But Ron Paul, yes, I consider myself libertarian. Then it kind of just shifted to libertarian nationalist, I guess you could say. But Ron Paul was one of the people that woke me up. In 2009, a couple months before I went into the military, I was hanging with some friends in Glen Rock, and one of them was asking me about the last election. Oh, no, correction. This was a year prior. This was 2008. This was the summer before the election. Before the primary. And my friend was asking me, who are you going to vote for? And I said, Barack Obama. I'm going for Barack because, hope and change and, the same sheep garbage everyone was saying. And he started telling me about Ron Paul. He pulls out his phone, like one of those Verizon flip phones, the original Android phones. YouTube was all choppy and stuff.
The Motorola one?
No, it was
the Razor?
It was the
Razor?
It was the Verizon Chocolate, I think it was called, or something like that. Anyway, but he opens up his phone and starts showing me a video of Ron Paul giving the speech, and it's just like this old frail guy kind of just talking. Yeah. And my mindset at that time wasn't, he's a Republican. I don't want to listen to some racist Republican. They hate black people, blah, 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 blah. And my friend would always, every time I would hang out with him, he would always talk about Ron Paul. And I started to think like, is this guy like a skinhead or something?
Was your friend black?
No, he was a white guy.
Okay.
He was a white guy, but I started to think like, is he a skinhead? Because like he keeps talking about Republicans, And he started asking me one day, he was like, what are your thoughts on the Federal Reserve? I had no idea what the Federal Reserve was. And I was like, what's the Federal Reserve? And he was like, you don't know about fractional reserve banking? And I'm like, no, I don't know anything about that. Shows the Ron Paul video again. I don't even want to watch the Ron Paul thing, right? But when I came back home, after leaving the military, when I come back home, that's when I decided to, Occupy Wall Street was also going on around this time. Mm-hmm. And I kind of felt a little bit conflicted because I used to think like a lot of those guys, right? Like, burn the banks and blah, 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 blah. And I get it. Yeah, the system sucks. We got to fight the system. But then my eyes were open more because I'd already seen what was going on within the military, that there's a hell of a lot more going on in the world than just the stuff you see here locally. It's not just these 1% as to why all this is happening. It's far, far, far more complicated, and there's a lot more nuance. And that's why I also gravitate towards federal politics more than local, because I understand geopolitics quite well. But Ron Paul's speeches, I decided to start looking into it because I wanted to understand why these guys were going to New York and Zuccotti Park and talking about the 1%. And Ron Paul talked about how the 1% owns it. And I do mention him talking about banking. And these guys don't like banks. So let's see what racist Ron Paul has to say. And I sat down and I watched this video. It was like an animated word video of him giving a speech. And he's talking about the fractional reserve banking system and how the fractional reserve bank has bankrupted our country and it's no longer backed in gold. And like my mind completely exploded because I had no idea. I didn't even understand how money was created up until this point. And then once I understood that, everything else clicked. Everything else kind of made sense. I'm like, if we want to actually save this country, we got to get rid of the fractional reserve banking system. We got to get rid of it. That's also another thing that President Trump said in 2016, or maybe it was 2015, 2016, during the campaign trail. They asked him what he believes are two of the biggest threats to the United States. And he said China and the fractional reserve banking system. We're lending out way too much money. Our country needs to get its debt under control. And other than Ron and Rand Paul, Donald Trump is the only other politician I've heard talk about that. So even though I didn't like him, I was leaning more towards him.
Right.
And I definitely wasn't voting for Hillary Clinton. I saw what she did in Haiti and all that nonsense, so I couldn't get behind that. When he got on stage and he said that she'd be in jail, that was it, bro. I was like, I gotta vote for this guy.
Is that like the best line?
Because you know what that showed me? This guy does not give a fuck. Like, he's gonna say what he needs to say.
That was the hook. Look, he knows media.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's waiting for the moment. He knows what people are gonna take, what people are gonna remember from that debate. That was
I'm still waiting on him to lock this lady up, but I got to tell you, man, when he said that, I was like, he said the quiet part out loud. And not just that time, but many, 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 many times.
Yeah.
You know, and after a while, I grew, right after I voted for him in 2016, 2020 is when I became diehard Donald Trump, because I'd already seen in 4 years, like, I was working at Sprint at the time, biggest paychecks I've had in a long time, selling cell phones. You know, it was a good time. And the economy was doing great. Everything was humming along. And in 2020, I was absolutely certain.
And he kept his promises.
He didn't lie.
He fought for exactly what he said he was going to fight for. It's so weird that somebody, you know, on our opposition would go and characterize him as a liar and all that kind of stuff when he kept his promise about everything. It's like, believe the man when he says what he says. It's like, it's just like, you're saying he doesn't give a crap.
You know, at during the 2024 race, the moment I knew without a doubt Trump was going to be president was the day they posted that mugshot. The day they posted that mugshot, I was like, it's a wrap. Because if you were going on like World Star Hip Hop or something like these urban websites or whatever, you would see
they're just going to identify.
There were so many people, street parades for President Trump, rappers rapping about Trump, yo, free Trump. And I'm like, these people don't care about Republicans. These guys love Trump right now. And then when he went to the South Bronx and he did the rally, I thought that was one of the funnest rallies
I was so happy that he did that. I was so happy that he went to
Yeah.
California. I was like, thank God. Yeah, you may not win these areas in the end, but at least you got to start moving the needle and setting it up for the next guy.
Exactly.
Excellent. I was so happy that he did it.
And you know, whoever wins the primary, I would encourage them to do the exact same thing. It's like, you need to do a rally in the inner cities, bro. Get some people motivated, you know, because it showed me that it's like, even because he doesn't have to do this, you know, you got more money than everyone in this house combined,
right?
And then some, you know. You don't have to do this. You don't have to come to the inner city. You don't have to run for president, get shot in the head. You don't have to go through any of this stuff. But the fact that, you know, he was willing to do it, after a while, it becomes very hard to justify why you want Kamala Harris when she's talking about LGB, whatever the heck, cut your penis off.
Can you imagine
all this nonsense?
Can you just imagine if we had to deal with her as president right now? Could you imagine Donald Trump not being our president right now and having Kamala Harris?
If Trump didn't win, I honestly believed, especially after he got shot in the head, if Trump doesn't win this election after getting shot in the head, they're going to kill him, and they're going to get away with it. They're going to get away with it if they kill him. You know, so
the threat is still there. Like, for me, I think that threat is still there.
Absolutely.
They're going to continue to try, because everything now that he's doing with China, with Russia, and even look at what he's doing with Iran. You know, a lot of people, they're telling me, hey, Scott, you see how he's snubbing Netanyahu? I'm like, man, you're a fool, okay? You can't go cozying up to the enemy of the person you're trying to make a deal with. Diplomacy. I love diplomacy, just like you said. Okay, yeah, Iran is our biggest threat. I think it's the world's biggest threat. They're the biggest state sponsor of terror. They're this close to getting a nuclear weapon. You want to do a deal? You want to be able to keep them close? Because they're your
enemies close, the way you're supposed to.
Yeah. Then you can't, you know, keep up optics that you're cozying up to their enemy. And they're like, oh, Israel's going to strike. Israel's not doing shit without the United States and a nod from Trump. They
Israel
know exactly what's going on.
If Israel attacks, and I don't care if this is controversial, if Israel attacks Iran without the United States, I promise you people are going to flip their wigs against Israel. I can't see any other reason why, because
they've already flipped their wig.
Well, I'm saying if they attack Iran, because now
they may feel like they have to, because they've been.
I don't think that's a smart move if Israel does that.
I don't think it's smart to do without the United States, 100%.
I
But they
don't
may
think
feel
it's-
that they have to if they don't have the support from the United States. But they feel like the Ayatollah and the mullahs over there are this close to getting a nuclear weapon. Then that's a threat to them.
I say, and while it may be a threat, I say if that's the case, if Trump is trying to work something out with Iran, you should hold short. If they go in, if they attack, if they're smart, I believe they will. If they attack Iran while Trump is trying to work out this deal or whatever chess game he's playing here, if you go and you attack a country like Iran, who, like you said, they're sponsoring all these other groups, you're going to set the world on fire.
I'm just trying to dispel the rumors. I really don't think that that's what they're doing. I don't think that they're trying to lure us into war. If Trump can,
it sure looks like it. I'm not gonna lie. It sure looks like it because me personally, and I've said this before on record as well too. It's like with what's going on between Palestine and Israel, it's a tragedy. But my focus is on the United States and the survival of the United States. If Israel goes out there and attacks Iran, I don't think the United States should help them at all. I don't think so.
If they do it without the nod from the United States, then I think it's going to be trouble.
I think that's what Trump's trying to avoid.
I do think that Trump would support Israel doing it, but there has to be an agreement between both Netanyahu and Trump, because it may come to a head where both Trump and Netanyahu believe, and this would have to be like, there would have to be that belief there. There would have to be that imminent threat that, yes, Iran is on the verge of a nuclear weapon. If they're on the verge of a nuclear weapon, you have to take it out, because forget Israel's safety. Okay, what about America's safety? The world's safety. Okay, that state cannot be allowed to have a nuclear weapon.
I think that's why Trump is trying to have these discussions to begin with.
100%. So let him have it. It might be a stall tactic. Who knows what it is?
I doubt it.
But I was just trying to dispel the rumors, because a lot of people think that Netanyahu is trying to lure him into going to war and attacking. A lot of people are also, they're like, oh, like in my circle of friends, a lot of the Israelis, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe, like Trump is snubbing Netanyahu. I'm like, dude, chill out. It's like everybody's just quiet and, watch what happens. That's what I said. Watch what happens. So we went over to the Middle East. Good. Let him go. He seems to be a good peacekeeper. Okay, he's trying to get Putin to the table. Look what he did with Zelensky and that whole blow up.
I love that.
That was awesome. It's like, who the hell do you think you are? Okay, you want peace, and then that's how you're going to try.
And you show up in pajamas? Get out of here.
How does that behavior bring your enemy to the table, who you want me to, mediate a peace deal with? You're an idiot. So that was beautiful. And now, he's crawling back, and Trump's like, okay, so let's try and get Putin to the table, who didn't come, by the way. But they're there, they're talking. I think if Trump wasn't there, Putin probably would never come.
No, of course not.
It's not going to happen without Trump. So he's doing a really good job with that. Look what he did with Pakistan and India, mediating that ceasefire. That was good. And I think, it's the same thing between Israel and Iran. There's so much pressure that Trump is putting on Iran now. I feel like they have to. They have to. Just from an economic standpoint, they're in big trouble. So they have to do something. It's only going to make
sense. It's I think the likely outcome. I think the likely outcome that's going to end up happening is that Iran, they may give up their nuclear plans. They may shift to trying to build nuclear reactors and nuclear power plants as opposed to nuclear weapons. And they work out a deal where they spread energy or share technology with the United States, or have a favorable tariff system to deal with this. I can't see a scenario, unless Israel specifically pushes for this, I can't see a scenario where we go to war with Iran right now, especially the way things are.
Nobody wants to.
Nobody wants to. I agree.
Even Israel. Israel doesn't want to.
Yes, but it's like, there's also the optics that Israel wants to go to war with them. So it's like, even if that's the case, and listen, I'm not saying whether they are or they're not. I'm talking just based on from an optics perspective here. I can't see Israel going and attacking Iran without the United States. People are saying that
not going to happen.
That Israel will try and do that. If Israel, and if Netanyahu was smart, he would realize that it's like, if I go and I attack Iran all by myself, you're surrounded. It's not a smart move. I just don't think that it's a smart move. And I think that this scenario can be resolved diplomatically. And I think probably by the end of the year, we should have some kind of resolution and closure between.
There's going to
nations.
have to be the pressure from the other surrounding nations. So, like, take Egypt, take Jordan. Yeah, there are differences, but they're at least at peace with Israel. That deal that was going down with Saudi Arabia that got squashed, probably by Iran, initiating that proxy war of what they did. There was what was it called? The Abraham Accords. So there was supposed to be a deal between Israel, Saudi Arabia. Iran doesn't want that to happen. Iran doesn't want, unification between Israel and Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's a lot of speculation that October 7th, was initiated by Iran funding Hamas as a proxy to do what they did, because then all hell breaks loose. It kind of stops the Abraham Accords. It stops that unification between Israel and Saudi Arabia. It's very plausible.
I mean, well, Trump has been in Saudi Arabia the past couple of weeks. I think he's making pretty good.
Going to try and do that deal again. I think for sure. As many countries as you can get to do deals with the United States, and then Iran's sitting there. And they're seeing all these neighboring countries making deals with us. They're going to be screwed.
You also got to look at it like this as well too. Saudi Arabia is an economic powerhouse, especially in regards to energy. They can't have something bad happening to them, and I'm sure Iran wants to maintain some kind of cozy relationship with them as well too. But with Saudi Arabia investing trillions of dollars in the United States, that already puts them on an island. So it's like, wait a minute, I want in on that cheese. I need to. Right. I want in on that cheese. I saw what you did for Saudi Arabia. Like, let's talk.
But
I think that's going to be the likely outcome. And I pray that's the outcome.
I would hope so, but you also have to remember intent. So just like we were talking about that guy who was talking in Times Square, the way he's talking, very aggressive. Okay. The people of Iran, most of them are really good people. I mean, it's gotten worse since you have this bad seed, the Ayatollah and the mullahs there. It's a different sort of governing from the top down. It is an Islamic state. Before, when you had the Shah ruling Iran, look at the way the women were dressing. They were competing in sports. They were doing all these things. You take a look at the old footage from that country, you wouldn't know that it was Iran today. Iran today, you got a bunch
Same with Afghanistan.
Yeah, you got a bunch of Darth Vaders, in the book. It's so walking around. Yeah, I don't discriminate with my race. I make fun of everybody, just so you know. But I'm just saying, it's very aggressively Islamic. They talk about death to Israel, death to America, death to the West. Mm-hmm. Okay, their plans, is for Islamic expansion. So while I agree with you, they want a part of the cheese. At the same time, I don't think that that's their initial concern. I think their concern is it really is survival, because their population now, their civilians, they're going to get rattled. And if they start to question the leadership, and the leadership is weak, okay, and Trump can make them bleed on the world stage.
I think that's why they will make it.
Well, I don't know. I hope so, but I would hope for better leadership.
I'll give you an example on why I believe that. Right. Let's take an even more extreme case: North Korea. Right, North Korea was saber rattling or launching missiles or test missiles over Japan, off the coast, whatever. Right. Trump shows up there. Right, first president in decades to be able to do that. And while that was great optics for us, the way that he showed it to the people, because they're like, wait a minute, well, I thought America's the enemy. He had to portray it to the people like, oh, well, we're making deals with America. America actually wants to work with us. And he framed it in a way where the people actually trust him, even though they don't like him. But hey, I guess we're not that bad with the United States anymore. That same logic would still apply in Iran as well, too. If you're losing your grip, you don't want America to make you bleed.
I don't know, Billy. I don't know. I kind of disagree with that.
You don't want America to make you bleed.
From a power standpoint, if it was just about, power, country, I would agree with you, but there's like an ideology. You know, there's also the ideology that you have to deal with. Remember, it's an Islamic state, and their ideology, it wasn't of the Shah, okay, but of the Ayatollah. It's death to America, death to the West, like I showed you on the video. Islam has to enter every single home. So it's a different ideology.
Well,
that's a diehard thing to
yes and no
to tackle.
Yes and no, but also look at it like this as well too. Same with North Korea. North Korea has done nothing since that meeting. They've not done anything.
They were never expansionists.
No, I understand.
They were always under China's thumb.
Hear me out. I understand your point with the expansion of Islam and stuff like that, but at the same time, who's to say they're not going to go and try and act foolish again as soon as President Trump leaves? In fact, when he left the first 100%. He started working up again with Joe Biden, right? So, from a militaristic or strategic standpoint, it's better to keep your powder dry and make a deal than to do something later in the future. Now, if Trump could actually make a deal and maintain that leverage outside of the White House and into the next administration, we're in a good position. But that really depends on how the president actually moves it. So if we're gonna look at it like, oh, we're gonna make a deal, but then there's an ideology, yeah, but they also are focused on survival, like you said as well too. So if you want to survive and you want to do that, it makes more sense to make the deal, keep the powder dry, try and make some kind of. My fear is this. This is my fear, right? And I think it could probably even get to this. Let's say they make such a good deal between Iran and the United States that now, hey, you know what? We'll start admitting more civilians or admitting more immigration visas or whatever from Iran. Or we start accepting, North Korean refugees or whatever on a visa program, right? That's something to be concerned with because now you don't know who's who or if you can even trust this guy.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
It's a possibility.
I hope not.
If things go well over the next 10 years, and I'm talking long term here.
Sure.
Right, I'm talking long term because like China, for example, they don't plan anything for the next 4 or 5 years, next presidential term. They plan 100 years in advance.
Yeah, they got a 100-year plan. We're on a 5-year plan.
Exactly. And I'm sure they have probably a 10-year, 20-year plan as well, too. So it's like it's better for us to wait, make the deal, get
100%.
in with the Trojan horse. I think that's more likely to happen. So I'm just praying that the president and the administration is aware of that. If we make a deal, America must always benefit on top of that, right? It has to be reasonable for both sides, but it has to be where we completely maintain the control.
It's going to have to stick, though, and we're going to have to win 28.
Correct.
To keep things...
Correct.
To keep things
that's
solid.
Where my focus
Very
is.
important.
Because I think what Trump is doing now, or the Trump administration is doing now, is they're laying the foundation for whoever is going to take it in 2028. And it's up to, I'm more focused on what's going to happen in 2028 than what's happening right now or over the next 4 years. Because all of this could be great, just like how 2016 to 2020 was great.
Yeah.
But there was no contingency plan past 2020. We'll just win and then we continue.
There's so many fronts you have to fight on.
So I really hope that the president is focused on even the deal he's got with El Salvador right now. If we catch you and you don't self-deport, we send you to El Salvador. You never get out, right? I'll give you. Speaking of El Salvador, I got to tell you something. That guy, I don't know if you follow him, Nayib Bukele.
Who?
Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador.
Oh no, I saw when he came to visit.
Bro, I've been following him since he was running. Yeah. That guy is, in my opinion, one of the best leaders of our modern generation. Trump is up there, don't get me wrong, but the guy is absolutely brilliant.
He's smart.
In the way that he operates. Because think about this, right? El Salvador was the murder capital of the Americas, right? So many people dying. MS-13's a household name. I've been dealing with those maniacs for God knows how long in my life, but it's been a household name now since Trump has become president, right? Nayib did a very smart idea, right? Right when he became president, he started sending the military after these guys, getting them arrested, locking them up, and making a big, giant spectacle of it, right? So now a lot of these illegals start coming into the United States, right? And I think that was all a part of his plan, right? If we don't catch you, we're going to lock you up. So a lot of these illegals leave, right? So now these illegals leave, right? Okay, if Trump becomes president, we'll make a deal. We're going to build this giant prison. In the meantime, he builds this giant prison. Once his giant prison is built, he goes to the United States. It's like, hey, I heard you got an immigration problem. Now that his country's safe, you collect them with your technology, your group, and everything, and I'll hold them for you, bro. So now the problem that I send to you, just give it back, and we're still profiting. We still win. We got slave labor. These guys are demons. Who cares? And we're gonna keep your country safe. Let's make a deal here. Brilliant. I don't think anybody could have thought of that. And he did it in a span of 6 years, made it one of the safest countries. That type of outside of the box thinking is what's going to move the world forward. And I think President Trump is one of those leaders that has the capacity to do that. Pierre Poilievre, who was supposed to be the guy that would have been the Canadian prime minister. I would have loved to see him as prime minister. I think him, President Trump, maybe even the leader of El Salvador could have probably put a lot of good things in place. Forward thinking is what's going to move our country forward, man. And
man, what a face plant.
Oh, yeah.
With Pierre. What
yeah.
a face plant.
Yeah.
That should have been a slam dunk.
Canada's toast, man. That's why I don't
and they're our neighbor. I'm almost scared now.
I don't want them to be I don't want them to be a state. You know, I know a lot of people want Canada. I do not want Canada to be a state. You know, because like, yeah, we could have all these resources, but you're talking about bringing a population that's like what? About 1.5 the population of California, with the majority of them super liberal. I don't want to deal with that.
You don't know.
I feel like that may sway politics way too much. I'm down with Greenland though.
I'm down with
Greenland.
100%. I'm down with Greenland.
Nah.
We'll see. We'll see what
I don't
happens.
want the Canadians, bro.
We'll see what happens on the next podcast. We're running out of time, so let me give you a chance to plug yourself for 2026. Go ahead.
So,
man.
Scott, thank you so much for everything. I mean, some of you guys have heard some of my positions, my policies, my story, my theory on flying spaceships in the state of New Jersey. I really hope that you guys come out in 2026 and support me for Congress. I will be running to represent the 9th District that encompasses Passaic, Bergen, and Hudson County. And if you want to stay up to date with some of the things that I'm doing, follow me on social media by just checking out Billy Prempeh. I'm most online on Instagram under the name Some Guy Named Bill. And
we'll put it up on the screen for everybody.
There you go. Scott, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, man. And remember, everybody, scottloia.com, sign up. I'm going to announce our first sponsor. We're very excited to announce our first sponsor on the next episode. We're going to be doing a whole episode at, you know what? I don't want to give it away, but it's going to be exciting. In the meantime, you go to scottloia.com. We got our motto here. Don't forget, leave the woke behind.
I like that.
And this was my favorite shirt. We had Paula Scanlon on the last time. I
prefer Hershey's.
Hershey's without nuts.
I like that.
All right. Go support the show. We're getting a lot of feedback, and we thank you so much, guys, for your support. Billy, good luck in
God
2026.
bless you, brother. Thank you.
And thank you for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. We'll do another. We had a lot to talk about, man.
That was what, 2 hours?
Otherwise, we would have kept talking. Yeah.
That was like 2 hours, right?